the VAT increase that is coming through is also going to continue to be a squeeze for the household. So I think that risks to our economic growth are really material, and we're certainly going to see a little bit more underperformance in the South African economy.
Okay. I mean, then reference is made regarding the inflation outlook, which I mean is another key barometer, and the governor spoke about 3.6% for later this year, but 4.5% for next year. What do you make of that?
No, so I mean, and this is the point I was making about the inflation outlook, right, is that oil prices are a very big determinant in terms of our inflation. We've got mostly what we call imported inflation. And so when you have a weaker currency, most of our inflation is not because people are spending more on things, and so that's demand-led. We've got cost-push inflation, and so that is, in essence, what we talk about, imported inflation. And so when the risk to a currency weakening, which the Reserve Bank governor alluded to, that if in September AGOA doesn't get renewed, if some of the tariff pressures continued in a global context, that may result in a risk-off environment for emerging markets, and that means the currency could get weaker. We're already seeing, as I said, that a lot of the institutional investors are selling off South African bonds, and the only thing that's helped our currency hold up is because people are offloading what we call currency hedges. So once those come through, you're probably going to see a weakening of our currency, which is often associated with, in essence, imported inflation in that particular context. And so for me, I think the inflation outlook is probably to the upside, slightly higher than what is currently being modeled coming out of the Reserve Bank.
So therefore, I mean, repo rate to confirm remains unchanged at 7.5%, which means prime lending effectively is unchanged at 11%, which means for most people, whatever interest rate they may be paying would be just about the same, right? So just the last thing very quickly, what does this mean then for, three categories? I would think businesses, as we know them, big businesses, then investors, and then ultimately the consumer.
I think from a business point of view, I mean, large kind of investments often associated with some level of borrowings. And so, when you can see that, in essence, that the opportunity for an interest rate cut is starting to dwindle, then they're going to start pricing in that the cost of capital for them is going to be higher. And so you might see a little bit of a resistance in terms of them choosing to deploy a lot more capital because of the cost of capital. That's at a business level. That may impact also then the employment choices. At a household level, consumer level, of course, again, is that in essence, most of consumers can probably at this point in time assume that we're at the bottom of the rate cutting cycle. And again, that means that then our cost of our home loans, the cost of our unsecured debt, and all of those things in the medium term or in the next few months could have risks that they may start going up. And so I think it's really about tightening our belts as well, getting into the next 2 or 4 months when the MPC meets in the next 2 times to really start to see what are the developments there. But I think certainly the risks are to the upside for household expenditure at this point in time and disposable income at a consumer level.
Okay, that's where we can leave it. Appreciate you giving up your time. Sifiso Skenjana, who's an economist and managing director of ESG Analytics. And that conversation will be up as a podcast as well fairly shortly. So check it up. It often gets tweeted out, but also primarily it's housed on the SAFM website, which you need to check out, safm.co.za. Just go then, podcast, the National Pulse, and you find all the conversations we've had over the last few weeks or months, in fact, all put up as a podcast. Right, now I'll tell you what we'll do. Let's just, we're going to get reaction to other things, but the president's spokesperson, Vincent Magwenya, has been rather busy today. So first things first, we'll get to know what he said next.
And then, how? SK, where are you going with that stuff?
My dog, I'm going whale watching. New hobby, you see. Finally going out to explore the world. Giri levels, Dwana.
I see the life jacket, but I don't know how an inflatable boat, megaphone, and a fishing rod fits into all of this.
How else am I going to get to the whales, bongs? I need the boat. The megaphone is to do my whale calls, and the fishing rod is called ambience. Ambience. If you don't get it, forget about it.
Okay, but SK, you know there aren't any whales here in Germiston Lake.
Ooh, Shem. Mr. Know-it-all. Whales live in the water, and Germiston Lake has water.
Hi, sure, Ntwana, go whale watching in Germiston Lake. Me, I'll tune into Whale with Steve Buckshall, Sundays at 5 p.m. only on S3.
What you're about to hear is not an email from Standard Bank. Good day, Dave. You haven't updated your details, so your account will soon be blocked. Please confirm your card number, bank PIN, card CVV number by clicking the link below. What? Don't fall for it. Standard Bank will never ask for your banking details in an email. Visit our help center on the banking app to learn more or call our fraud line on 0800 222 050. Another lesson to hashtag beat the scam. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
For 90 minutes, neighbors will not get along. Bafana Hugo are hunting for 3 points, but Dikwena want to cause an upset. This is the FIFA World Cup 2026 African qualifier. Witness the human rights pitch rivalry between South Africa and Lesotho on Friday, 21 March at 5:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, S3 and SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
This is a story of Vodacom's impact.
Having the psychosocial support team has benefited us a lot. You're now able to refer to a specialist. We can accredit that to Vodacom.
This is why we do it. We've deployed psychosocial professionals specializing in GBV and bullying across 30 schools of excellence and ECD centers, helping over 30,000 learners. That's why we're the #1 CSI contributor for 8 years running. See more at now.vodacom.coza. Further together, Vodacom.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
So it's been a busy morning for the presidential spokesperson Vincent Magwenya. He briefed the media on President Ramaphosa's upcoming program. Now, during the press briefing, Magwenya made the point that South Africa does not enjoy an improper relationship with Iran, even though the two countries share historical bilateral relations that date back a few decades ago. But he said more. He also revealed that President Ramaphosa will attend tomorrow's inauguration of the President-elect of the Republic of Namibia. Remember, that's Her Excellency, the first female president of that country, Her Excellency Dr. Netumbo Nandi Ndaitwa. Now, take a listen to what he had to say.
A lot has been said about South Africa and Iran relations. South Africa and Iran share historical bilateral relations that date back a few decades ago. Iran is on historic record as having played a critical role and supported the South African liberation movements. One of its leadership, by example, was its severing of official relations with apartheid South Africa in 1979 and imposed a trade boycott against the apartheid regime. The action was a direct protest against apartheid regime's policies. Furthermore, South Africa does not have a sinister relationship with Iran. We do not have a nuclear weapons program with Iran. South Africa abandoned its nuclear weapons program prior to 1994, and that was a program that was managed by the apartheid government. The dismantling of that program was verified by the United Nations. By the time a democratic government took over the leadership of this country, in 1994, South Africa had ceased in engaging in any form of nuclear capacity development for weapons purposes. And again, we will reject the assertion that we have a sinister program with Iran that's aimed at generating some form of nuclear weapons program or capacity for South Africa. We're not involved in that, and there's evidence to that point, and we will challenge anyone who asserts otherwise to provide evidence to that effect. In the absence of evidence, we caution media colleagues with respect to how that story is reported. In the absence of evidence, we will reject any assertion or any claim for that matter that we are involved in some kind of sinister relationship with the government of Iran and that we are involved in the development of nuclear.
So that's on Iran. What about the new president of Namibia?
With the program, the president tomorrow will attend or undertake a working visit to the Republic of Namibia to attend the inauguration of the president-elect, Mrs. Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah. The inauguration ceremony, which coincides with Namibia's 35th Independence Day, will take place tomorrow on the 21st of March at the Independence Stadium in Windhoek. The President's attendance of the inauguration of President-elect and the current Vice President will provide an opportunity to reaffirm the strategic nature of the cordial bilateral relations between South Africa and Namibia and further consolidate bilateral cooperation between the two countries. South Africa and Namibia enjoy excellent bilateral relations due to the deep fraternal and historic relationship cemented during the fight against colonialism and apartheid. Namibia's stability and interrelated ties with South Africa make the country a natural strategic partner not only in the SADC community, but also in the broader African Union context and globally. President Ramaphosa is looking forward to working closely with the new president of Namibia and the government to advance mutual political, economic interest and the integration of the African continent. Both countries pursue Africa's renewal, South-South cooperation, and the promotion of a rules-based international system.
All right, reaction from you both on Namibia and South Africa, Iran. Certainly like to get your thoughts about it. To call in 086 000 2032. Right, there's already a reaction on South Africa, or rather US and Israel, from Imbowana in Mahikeng. Go for it, Imbowana. Hi.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Right, what's your point?
My point is, why are we, as the world, failing to fight back to American and the Israelis when they're committing genocide to the people of Palestine? Why are we failing to defend the innocent people that has been attacked and killed because of their land need to be stolen from the Americans and the Israelis?
And when you say fight back and defend the innocent people, what stance, I mean, we know what South Africa's position is, right? But what stance would you like the world to take, and perhaps name some countries here?
Because what? We got organizations like Security Council, United Nations, International Criminal Court, which are not doing anything to defend the people of Palestine. So, and we're living with these people from America and Israelis here.
Well, look, I mean, I think just to give some perspective, with the ICC, they only put out arrests for individuals. The ICJ does it for countries. The ICC has got an arrest actually for Benjamin Netanyahu, provided he goes to a country that is a signatory to the ICC or to the Paris Accord. That's not the case regarding the USA. That's why he could go to the USA, for example. They've disregarded the ICC. With the same with the ICJ. But that process, already there's a preliminary finding around genocide. But the process in terms of finality could take months, if not years, before we get that, right? The last part that you made, which I think is important, regarding the UN Security Council, yes, certain members of the Security Council have a veto, and that country is called the USA. So no matter whatever else anybody else votes for, if a Security Council is to vote on it, the US veto will hold sway, and as always hold sway. So that's the story in Botswana. What else needs to happen? We'll talk about that maybe in the upcoming minutes, and other comments from other people too, right? Let's get the news headlines. It's 3:30 years with Sila.
Thanks, Ashraf. Good afternoon. In the headlines, the South African Reserve Bank has kept the repo rate unchanged at 7.5%. The prime lending rate remains at 11%. The Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein has dismissed with costs the ANC's appeal, which challenged the legitimacy of the party's Northwest leadership elected in 2022. And Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky is due to address European Union leaders who are meeting in Brussels today to discuss the economic and military challenges facing the continent. He's expected to brief them on his phone call with the US President Donald Trump yesterday, who is pushing to end the war caused by the Russian invasion. Details at 4 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, Cedar Road westbound in four ways has a crash reported near Valley Road. The R59 northbound in Alberton queuing towards Michelle Avenue. In Bedfordview, the N12 R24 westbound has a stationary vehicle before Gilulis interchange. All lanes are open and slow-moving traffic recorded on both routes. And the N3 northbound slow-moving on the link to the N12 east at Gilulis interchange. In KZN, the N2 southbound queuing towards Spaghetti Junction. The M3 westbound has a truck crash reported near Recreation Road, so expect delays in the area. The N3 westbound is queuing towards Hammersdale, and the N3 eastbound queuing towards Ashburton. In Cape Town, Muway in Khayelitsha is closed between Spine Road and Palmer Road due to protesting-related issues. The N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound queuing towards Hospital Bend. The M3 Philip Khosana Drive outbound queuing towards Hospital Bend, and the N1 outbound queuing towards the M5 Kuburg interchange. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
All right, so it's very much an international football weekend for many people, right? Therefore, spotlight off the clubs onto the national team. Let's talk Banyana.
Very good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and our listeners. Banyana coach Desiree Ellis has named a full-strength squad for 2 upcoming friendly internationals against Malawi on the 5th and the 8th of April. Some notable inclusions include JVW's Mpumi Nyandeni, who returns to the fold following a prolonged absence. Regulars such as Bambanani Mbane, Karabo Dlamini, and Wendy Shongwe have all been left due to injury. Former skipper Refilo Jane also remains out. This is despite her recent return to football with TS Galaxy. And then veteran defender Noko Matlo will make her farewell game at international level, while Nompumelelo Nyandeni will also finally get a 150th cap. Then TS Galaxy Samukelo Kabini has signed a 3-year contract with Molde FK until 2028. Now this transfer, which is valued at a record 15 million rand, marks a significant milestone in Kabini's career, transitioning from Orlando Pirates to the international stage. His arrival in Norway was met with celebration, reflecting the high expectations and support from fans both locally and internationally as he steps into this new chapter of European football. Definitely a talent for the future. He only actually came into the scene when he was around 18 years old. Back in 2022, he was playing for Orlando Pirates' Diski Challenge side, joined TS Galaxy in 2023, and he was 19, and now he's 21, and he's going to ply his trade in Norway. In rugby, the Sharks have been boosted by the return of Andre Esterhuizen for round 13 of Vodacom URC clash against Zebra Palmer at Kings Park on Saturday. Esterhuizen is set to make his long-awaited return from injury. This is after being named on the bench by head coach John Plumtree. The Springbok world champion has been sidelined since the end of December due to a knee surgery. However, Boglock Yeben Etzebeth, who suffered from recurring concussion symptoms, remains sidelined. Lukhanyo Am and Sia Masuku are also notable absentees, and Sia Kolisi will captain the side, while Vincent Chituka returns to the starting 15, replacing Lapis Labaskachni at blindside flanker in the only change among the forwards. In athletics, rising sprinter Tumi Ramokgopa couldn't hold back her tears after breaking the South African junior 100-meter hurdles record at the Athletics SA Grand Prix Continental Tour Challenger at the UJ Athletics Stadium on Wednesday. The 17-year-old clocked 13.22 seconds, shaving off 0.13 seconds of the previous national record that was set by Taylan Bilt in Poland in July 2016. Now, while the national 100-meter hurdles champion Marouane Fourie claimed victory with a time of 12.69 seconds, Ramokgopa finished behind her, still in disbelief as she saw her new personal best time.
I am overwhelmed. I am in disbelief. I did know that when I'm running against Marianne, she's going to push me to that SA record, but I didn't think of a 13.2. I did miss it last week, which is 0.02, but then now it is big. It means a lot, and I didn't expect to break it in my first year as a junior. But anything is possible through the Lord, so I put my faith in Him, and I told myself that I am going to do the best that I can, and He will help me and guide me.
A big congratulations to her. Finally, in tennis, world number 3 Carlos Alcaraz distanced himself from the lawsuit filed by the Professional Tennis Players Association against the governing bodies of the sport, saying that it caught him by surprise. Now, the PTPA, which is an advocacy group co-established by Novak Djokovic, filed the lawsuit on Tuesday, accusing the ATP, WTA, International Tennis Federation, and International Tennis Integrity Agency of competitive practices. Now, it said that the governing bodies were also disregarding player welfare, and in one section of the 163-page document included a quote from Alcaraz himself, who had criticized the hectic tennis calendar last September. How interesting, Ashraf. How surprised is he where he's actually quoted in this lawsuit against these governing bodies, and he's like, but I was not part of this, even though it was his quote, one of the quotes that was mentioned
It's
in the
funny
lawsuit.
that he's surprised. What do you make of it?
I guess he's just he's probably just saying that yes, he did voice the fact that it is a hectic tennis calendar, but it does not necessarily mean that he wanted to somehow sue them or have a law case against them.
Let's see what happens next. Yeah.
Yeah.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
Jazz lovers, the wait is over. Africa's grandest gathering returns on the 25th to the 26th of April at the Cape Town International Convention Center. Experience 2 nights of soul-stirring jazz, electrifying collaborations, and over 30 world-class artists across 4 iconic stages. Don't miss this unforgettable musical experience. Get your tickets now at ticketmaster.co.za. Brought to you by Independent Media, proud media partner of the Cape Town International Jazz Festival.
Something big is coming. 6:30 will never be the same. Amalanga Wafani, only on SABC 1. The Cheetahs are very hungry for victory. However, Bafana Bafana say they are in the business of collecting 3 points. The West battles it out with the South. This is the FIFA World Cup 2026 African qualifier. Experience the delight of African football. Benin versus South Africa. On Tuesday, 25 March at 5:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, S3, and at 6 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Also, available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
Okay, so has your medical aid gone up this year? And that does not mean that you have to pay more for your car insurance too. So get a quote, and if OUTsurance can't beat your car insurance premium, ask them for 500 rands in cash, and make that 1,500 rands if you've been claim free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Get monthly savings on your car insurance or cash in your pocket. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With OUTsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
So this is interesting. We know that South Africa hosting the G20, effectively at the end of the year, but it does mean there are projects around it all throughout this year, right? And then South Africa has certain positions regarding the global economy and where it is and who's winning and who's not, right? So it is in that context that we talk about this, the second International Financial Architecture Working Group, and the key word is financial architecture, right? The working group has concluded its meeting, and what made the meeting more important is that South Africa has been very consistent in calling for reforms of the global financial architecture. South Africa's presence of the view that Africa's development is so stagnated by unsustainable levels of debt. So what does that mean? Well, as we know, South Africa calling for an international financial architecture that can support economies to grow, liberate them from a vicious debt cycle that leads to low investment. Basically, they're talking about a change. Let's try and understand what that really means with Dr. Magali Masamba, the economic and legal policy advisor focusing on issues of global economic governance, sovereign debt and human rights, and advocate of the High Court of Zanzibar. Dr. Masamba, appreciate your time and thanks for connecting on the National Pulse.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Let's talk about, when we talk about the international financial architecture and potential changes in that, right? Perhaps your initial thoughts in terms of what is the financial architecture of the world at this point in time, and then whether that differs in Africa.
Thank you. That's such an important question, Ashraf. So the international financial architecture really is, I guess, the framework that governs international finance. So, for example, it will include multilateral development banks like the World Bank, for example, the IMF, but also the international financial architecture governs how we, for example, borrow. And borrowing is not only from international institutions, it's also, for example, borrowing from private creditors and so forth. So it is really a complex beast. So when we speak about reforming the international financial architecture, there will be different, I think, facets that the South African presidency would be focusing on, and debt would be, or debt reform would be really one very important facet of that kind of broader picture.
So in simple terms, does that mean that's the rules of the game, the way that countries do business with each other? Yeah. And does that differ between, again, globally and Africa?
Well, I guess I wouldn't say so much it differs per se. I would say that we are all pieces of a puzzle in the broader picture. So, for example, African countries mostly are borrowers in the international financial architecture. We're mostly debtors. And you would find that international institutions, foreign countries, international creditors, and so forth would be lenders, for example. So it's not so much that there's different architectures in different regions or international is different from African, but Africa is part of a broader puzzle.
Okay, they may just get impacted differently, as you said, whether you're borrowing or lending. Exactly. I get that, right? Then what came out of the working group meeting?
I think the two working group meetings that have been concluded so far have shown that there are issues in the international architecture. These issues are not new. They are systemic. They have existed for a long time. And I think one of the biggest issues that is coming up relates to the debt landscape of African countries. I think when you look at, for example, the stats that National Treasury has issued, it's very, very, very alarming. National Treasury's website highlights the fact that I think more than half of the 1.3 billion Africans living on the continent, living in countries that are paying more for interest payments than investing in healthcare, education, and infrastructure. I think another interesting fact that Treasury has highlighted is the fact that in 2025 alone, African countries are going to be paying about $89 billion in external borrowing. Now, the working group is, I think, mandated with dealing with such a complex problem that they're not easy solutions to, and they're not solutions that can be achieved in, a single year. However, South Africa has a unique opportunity to start getting the ball rolling. And one of the things that I think the country has done right is creating an panel of experts, including many African experts, that are going to be tackling the issues of Africa's debt crisis.
All right. So now, as part of my intro, we spoke about South Africa's position and certainly the president calling for a change in terms of the international financial architecture, right? And that needs to support economies that grow. Is that really going to happen? Because I'm thinking about the status quo, even, for example, with issues like the United Nations Security Council, in terms of countries with vested interests making sure that they have the power and that remains. Does that not the same apply to the financial architecture of the world? And nobody's going to change willingly to try and satisfy a region?
Absolutely. I think you're hitting the nail on the head when it comes to the fact that there is unfairness and possibly, I'll say, the lack of democracy when it comes to the international financial architecture. However, what I can add to the point you've just made is the fact that the G20 is important. It matters. So it, constitutes it constitutes 19 of the world's leading economies, and literally constitute 85% of the global domestic product, 75% of international trade, and 2/3 of the world's population. So this particular group actually matters. And I think it matters especially when it comes to solving these global, financial issues. Now, I don't think South Africa's position is that the international financial architecture needs to reform to appease or to please one region. I think what's coming out, and it's really come out from the COVID-19 pandemic, is that when one region is in crisis, it literally affects the world. So debt is not just an African issue. Debt is a systemic issue. It's a human rights issue. It's a question of how do we even finance the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, let alone our own regional agendas like, the AU 2063 agenda. I think the world cannot really work in silos. What affects different regions, and debt is not only an African issue, has to be tackled in a uniform and united manner.
But the other point that was made was South Africa certainly pushing for an economy to liberate countries from a vicious debt cycle. Now that's interesting because, up to now, when we think about countries that are in debt and they need support, right, they're going to more debt via, IMF, World Bank. Are those vehicles, IMF, World Bank, able to get countries out of a vicious debt cycle? In fact, do they perpetuate it?
That's a very good question. It's a complex question that I can, not really answer. I think in the most straightforward manner. But what I can say is that, I wouldn't say that the World Bank and IMF on their own can just liberate countries out of the vicious debt cycle, because the question really is what is causing these issues, and the cause is multifaceted, right? So on one hand, you have the international financial architecture that is perpetuating issues, and the World Bank and the IMF will have a role to play and will have to reform, and that is a big part of South Africa's agenda. On the other hand, you have the issue of, high debt levels and very expensive borrowing from high interest rates and, high fluctuating exchange rates. And this is an issue that also has to be dealt with between borrowers and lenders. So there's a need for restructuring, and some will even say debt forgiveness, debt relief. And then at the same time, you have issues that need to be solved at a national level that might relate to management, transparency, accountability, and anti-corruption. So I think everyone's got a role to play when it comes to the solution.
So what role does South Africa then play as the chair of the G20? I bumped into Casper Vandia yesterday. Of course, he's the Sherpa, but besides just saying a couple of niceties, we couldn't really get into really chatting. And that's my question to you. What role can South Africa play? That means, will they play and can they play in terms of reshaping the architecture, considering we're chairing the G20?
Yeah, I think South Africa definitely has a very important role to play. I think I've already highlighted the importance of the G20. But what I can say is that it's the first time that an African country is the president or is chairing the G20. It's also the first time that all these meetings are being held literally on African soil. I think South Africa has a fantastic opportunity indeed to push for a more sustainable agenda when it comes to debt. I think there is an opportunity to push for an Africa agenda, which is important. And I'll also mention the fact that in as much as I think it's going to be a very important year for the G20, we should also note the time limit. It is, less than a year left in the year. There's less than a year left in South Africa's term. So obviously we're not expecting South Africa to completely, reform and transform the international financial architecture, but really to lay the groundwork working with the former G20 chair, Brazil, and working with the future G20 chair, the US, to lay the groundwork. So I think that's the interesting little span I'll throw in the works.
Well, lots to reflect on that. Appreciate the conversation with you, Dr. Magali Masamba. And yeah, it certainly gets us thinking, and I'm sure the audience will engage in some way in terms of how can we actually truly reform the international financial architecture of the world. So much appreciate your time. Right now, what about you? It's time to engage with us. You can call in now, 086 000 2032, and then WhatsApp. Voice notes, 30 seconds, please, maximum. Or you can text as well, 0614 104 107. Thanks for joining us here on the National Pulse.
Over the last 50 years, one man has played an unparalleled part in transforming British society. This man is Rupert Murdoch. Feared by politicians, Murdoch has built the biggest media operation on the planet. His empire has given him extraordinary power and influence. The rise of the Murdoch family is an electrifying study of the Murdoch dynasty, charting the ups and downs of an empire. From the ambition that fueled its success, to the criminality that led to the closure of the News of the World and the Leveson Inquiry. This is The Rise of the Murdoch Family. Thursdays at 10 p.m. starts 13 February, only on S3.
Tshwane University of Technology ladies are chasing 3 points. But Copperbelt ladies have a different idea. They want to play great football for the duration of the match to walk away victors. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Catch Mzansi Queens of the beautiful game. TUT ladies versus Copperbelt ladies on Saturday 22 March at 10:30 a.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Get a true AI business partner from Vodacom Business when you get the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra on a Red Business 1.7 gig contract for 1,599 Rand per month over 24 months. Enhance your deal. Add 349 Rand extra per month over 24 months and get the Samsung Galaxy Watch Ultra. Available in-store and online. T's and C's apply. Further together, Vodacom Business.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
All right, lots of comment about a range of issues, mainly global issues. So Tommy's saying, and this is interesting, let me just pick that up. Tommy from East London saying, hi Ashraf, it looks like South Africa is too submissive when it comes to its relations with the US. We don't need to explain our relationship with the universe to the US as our presidency is doing. We owe them nothing, and they should make that clear to the USA. Is Tommy right? I wonder. I don't know whether it's as simple as that, Tommy. Seriously so. Right, let's get comment. Rasul arrives tomorrow, I understand.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. When is Ibrahim Rasul landing? We are ready to give him a hero's welcome. Thank you very much. Peter Machaba from Lesotho.
I'm looking at keys in Temba to assist. I think it's tomorrow, 11 o'clock. I just want to get a thumbs up on that one. Are you really going to go? Give a hero's welcome to the former South African ambassador to the USA.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. It's Edward. Ashraf, I think our children are going to have a problem interpreting the meaning of the word bully. The South African President Ramaphosa said that South Africa is not going to be bullied. But at the same time, they are doing what the bully wants. And right now, South Africa cannot name a street. South Africa cannot welcome one of their own to avoid being on the wrong side of the bully.
Well, talking about the street, just to give perspective, you know there was this vote in Joburg that's been long delayed, then there was a review, then there's a vote this week to rename Sandton Drive, a very popular street in the Joburg, in the Sandton region, right? Which just happens to be the same street where the U.S. Embassy is, from the Sandton Drive to the Leila Khalid Drive or street, right? I understand today, and we'll talk about it later on, there's now been, from the presidency, they've asked Joburg City to put that on hold for now. And I think that's the point that that caller is referring to. It's a big issue. We'll have a full-on conversation about it after 5 o'clock.
Ashraf, William here from East London. You know, I think either our government thinks that the Americans are fools or they don't really know what's going on. I'd like to know from the South African government, perhaps they can inform us who paid for the case against Israel at the International Criminal Court. Because to bring a case before the International Criminal Court is close on 900 and something odd million. I don't think South Africa footed that bill, one, because they don't have the money. Someone else did. I wonder who it could be.
Well, you seem to have all the answers. I can tell you now, South Africa, up to now, has emphatically said, to go back to what you're alluding to, Iran has not given them anything. Now, if it ever comes out that's true, then we'll have that conversation later on. But every day we're getting people assuming that that's the case. Why would they think it's just Iran and nobody else, right? Okay, more comments.
Afternoon, Ashraf. Ashraf, who gave this big brother status to America? We should explain ourselves, our own current affairs to America. We must explain we are not doing that, we are not involved in nuclear, we are not doing this, we are not abusing Afrikaners and whatever. Why should we have to explain ourselves because we are a sovereign country? Who gave America this prefect, the head boy status? Who gave them that status? It's rubbish. Just keep quiet. Unfortunately, President Ramaphosa is too soft, man. Very, very soft. It's a soft drink. Don't know from Brixton.
As soft as a soft drink. Oh, my goodness. I think it's a bit confusing between the two. You certainly don't want to have another country meddling in your domestic affairs. I think that would be wrong. I think the issue about the right is the trade issue. Unless you're prepared to close your doors to trade with the USA, you can't really go away and say, we don't want to talk to you about anything. But there is a school of thought to say maybe it's a time for South Africa, if they're going to lose AGOA, to start doing more with other countries like China and like the European Union.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Ashraf, I've never been this disappointed in my life. The Muslim countries, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, with so much money, so much wealth they've got, they paying players ridiculous amount of money, $1 billion. But now they can't formulate a collective approach to fight against this aggressor, Israel, which is clearly intending or is in the process of destroying everything that is Palestinian. Israel is killing the civilians there. And then we've got these wealthy Muslim countries. They can't be bold in taking this Israel on. Very, very disappointing. Very, very disappointing.
Make an interesting point. The question is that, yes, there are certainly some Arab countries that are very wealthy. Others are not, right? But why do you think the wealthy countries are not doing so? As you said, you're disappointed. I think the answer is pretty obvious. Just look at how it's intertwined in terms of the global hegemony of the West and how they are linked to that in many, many ways. Just one more.
Hi, Ashraf. Great show as always. It's Nondu from KZN. Ashraf, I'm having sleepless nights regarding where the country is going, looking at the relationship between South Africa and the USA, because we don't want to be the next Zimbabwe.
We certainly don't want to be that, not at all, right? So what do we do next around it?
Hi, Ashraf. Harishum Hausela from Mokopane. We need men and women like the former ambassador to the United States. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, I'm sure that conversation is not going to go away. Rasul arrives tomorrow. I'll give an update on that just now. Let's get the news now. It's 4 o'clock. Here's Utsile.
Thanks, Ashraf. Top stories at 4 o'clock. Reserve Bank keeps rates unchanged and Zelensky set to address EU leaders. Good afternoon. The Reserve Bank's Monetary Policy Committee has decided to keep the repo rate unchanged at 7.5% and the prime lending rate at 11%. The bank notes that while inflation appears to be contained on the local front, the global economy is not on a stable footing, which puts current domestic favourable trends at risk. Delivering the MPC's decision in Pretoria, Reserve Bank Governor Lesetja Kganyago says that the bank has also decided to lower its economic growth outlook for the country to 1.7%.
Against this backdrop, the MPC decided to keep the policy rate unchanged at 7.5%. 4 members preferred this action, while 2 favored a cut of 25 basis points. For several quarters, we have enjoyed rising confidence in South Africa with a smaller country risk premium and lower bond yields.
President Cyril Ramaphosa has requested formations, including the ANC, that wish to welcome expelled South African ambassador to the United States, Ebrahim Rasool, to avoid inflaming the current tense relations between the two countries. U.S. authorities have declared him persona non grata for the comments he made about President Donald Trump at a foreign policy webinar. Presidential spokesperson Vincent Magwenya briefed the media at the Union Buildings in Pretoria earlier today.
He's not asking them to stop welcoming Ambassador Rasool, but he's saying, please be considerate of what he's trying to manage at the moment and be considerate of what is at stake with respect to the country's economy, with respect to doing our level best to retain that strategic partnership with the United States and hopefully even be able to engage in a revised trade framework.
The Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein has dismissed with costs the ANC's appeal, which challenged the legitimacy of the party's Northwest leadership elected in 2022. The appellants contended that the interim provincial committee had convened the conference after its term of office had expired. It also said that the ANC's National Executive Committee, which had assumed the control of the conference, had violated the party's constitution. The farming community has bemoaned lack of support from authorities to combat stock theft. They say they've lost confidence in the police because some are working with the criminals. Some farmers have indicated that they are forced to take matters into their own hands. Billions of rands are lost by the farming community annually across the country due to stock theft. The engagement has brought together top of police officials from KwaZulu-Natal, Eastern Cape and Limpopo, and other farming communities from affected provinces. National Police Commissioner General Fani Masemola.
The objective is to have stock theft units at every environment where majority of the people have got stock. For now, as you are aware that the numbers at some point we didn't have them to increase police. We have now started increasing police, and I've given detectives 4,000 detectives that they are currently recruiting. Some have started already.
And finally, further afield, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky is due to address European Union leaders who are meeting in Brussels today to discuss the economic and military challenges facing the continent. He's expected to brief them on his phone call with US President Donald Trump yesterday, who's pushing to end the war caused by Russia's invasion. The EU leaders will discuss taking more responsibility for Europe's own defense at a time of waning US commitment. Speaking ahead of the meeting, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen stressed the importance of the summit.
So these are decisive days for Europe, and we have a packed agenda for the European Council. Of course, we will discuss Ukraine, how to get to a just and lasting peace. But we are challenged in our competitiveness, and we are challenged in our security agenda.
Recapping the top story, the Reserve Bank's Monetary Policy Committee has decided to keep the repo rate unchanged at 7.5% and the prime lending rate at 11%. For SFM News, I'm Uzi Lesaku. Headlines at 4:30.
And coming up in your sports this hour, SuperSport United sack Gavin Hunt. Japan becomes the first nation to book their FIFA World Cup ticket, and Martin hopes to return from injury in Qatar. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N3 northbound in Bedford View has a crash reported near Van Buren Road. The N1 northbound in Midrand is slow moving towards Samrand Road. In Pretoria, Eskempahleli Drive northbound has delays towards Moot Street and Daspo Tunnel, queuing at the tunnel. In KZN, the M7 westbound has a truck crash reported near Recreation Road, so expect delays in the area. The N3 westbound queuing towards Cliffdale. The M4 northbound in Mhlanga is queuing towards Sabaya Drive traffic circle, and the N3 eastbound queuing towards Spaghetti Junction. In Cape Town, the N1 outbound queuing towards Okavango Road exit. The N2 is slow moving through Somerset West. The M5 southbound slow moving towards Milner Road, and the M3 inbound queuing towards Hospital Bend. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Stay safe on the roads. SFM is with you.
Who will rise in the Hollywood Bets Pro Series, where the top 8 women's cricket teams face off against each other to lift the inaugural Hollywood Bets Pro 50 and Pro 20 trophies? Local pride is at stake with the log table taking shape. Waza nawe! Get down to a stadium near you and show your support. Visit cricket.co.za for more information. Entrance to Hollywood Bets Pro Series matches is free.
Join us for the first ever Radio 2000 Annual Family Day in partnership with SABC2 on Saturday, 22 March at the Fat Olive, Pelindaba Road, Lanseria, Johannesburg. Enjoy go-karts, five-a-side soccer, pedal boats, and more. Explore the arts and crafts market and treat your taste buds at our food stalls. And a kids zone will keep the little ones entertained. Gates open at 10 a.m. and tickets start from just 100 Rand at ticketpro.co.za. Follow us on Radio 2000_ZA. Radio 2000. Our music, your memories. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So I understand that COSATU, amongst many other parties or groupings, are planning a welcome home or a hero's welcome for the former South African ambassador to the USA, Ebrahim Rasool. We'll see, of course, government has asked, or the president has asked those parties or groupings to tone down that welcome. And I'm getting ahead of myself. Did I say that he's going to arrive tomorrow? Clearly not. Keys has reminded me to say no. He's coming on Sunday, 11 a.m. Of course, that's being Cape Town, right? So Cape Town International, Sunday, 11 a.m., right? And the ANC itself, they're certainly promoting the fact that he's arriving on that day. Right, let's talk about another important issue which somehow or the other is all linked to the conversations that somehow gets linked to the USA. And I'm talking about issues of expropriation of land, because we have with us, in fact, now Makashule Ghana, who's the Rise Mzansi National Assembly Caucus Whip, right? So Makashule, good chatting to you once again. Thanks for connecting on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon to you, Ashraf, the SFM listeners.
Thank you.
We are honored. We feel seen to be on your platform.
Much appreciated. I understand that, your party or yourself has issued a statement referring to, expenditure for public works, and somehow or the other, what's significant about that, it links to issues of expropriation of land, which, as you and I both know, is one of the hottest themes of the year in this country.
Indeed. So I took it upon myself to ask the Minister of Public Works, as the custodian of Expropriation Act, both the 1975 and the recently signed Expropriation Act, whether his department has expropriated land in the last 10 years. And because I wanted to understand what kind of land has been expropriated, for what purpose, and so forth. But the minister comes back and he says that no, as a department, we have not expropriated land. And this happens at a time where people are busy telling lies about the country, about the government, what is happening in South Africa, to say people's farms are being taken. But then the department that should have been at the forefront of this quote-unquote expropriation says that they have not expropriated land. So it's one of the things that when you take the noise out,
you realize that in the main, the government and the department, even before the current minister came in terms of how a land was purchased and so forth, was not this grab, getting someone's land and then taking it, because it never happened. And that's why we wanted to confirm, to say officially, as a minister, do you know of instances where the department has expropriated land? And this says no, the department has not expropriated land. So now all these AfriForum and all these people, where do they get this information that land has been expropriated in this country?
So let's confirm. So you're saying Public Works is saying they have not expropriated any land in the last 10 years. Is that right? Well, 10 years now, it's 11 years, moving on, but nothing. Is that the same with expropriating land with compensation or without? Did that come up too?
It's expropriation of land. So it was not whether they paid money or they did not pay money. It's whether they've expropriated land. And they haven't, as a department.
All right. I understand also part of your findings based upon your question is there was an issue of assisting, the issue of land transfer, I suppose, needed by Eskom. What happened there?
Yes, so the department says they are assisting Eskom to, this when they will use expropriation, to Eskom to acquire certain properties that it needs in order to put on their lines and ensure energy security. So, the servitudes where Eskom can be able to put their lines so that people don't settle under the cables or in the near vicinity. So those are the properties that the department says they are assisting Eskom, and the cost of these properties comes to less than 4 million rands.
Okay,
that's the official response from the Minister of Public Works.
All right, and to confirm that assistance came in what form? And who owned that land when the department assisted?
So these are private landowners that were owning the land, and now the department is assisting Eskom because Eskom needs that land in order to put their lines, transmission cables, so that people who are living closer to where the lines, the transmission lines should be, needs to that land, the servitudes need to be then transferred.
I understand
to Eskom.
that, right?
So that is the only expropriation that is currently happening. So this so-called mass expropriation of farmland, of land in the hands of white people is just misinformation and disinformation that people are pushing to portray the democratic government as an uncaring government.
How does this help South Africa in its conversations with the USA? Because I think they are a significant player in what has happened over the last few weeks, right? Meaning that, is the accusation that they have expropriated land already in that 10-year period you referred to, or is the conversation about, we know you're going to do so as per the new act?
The conversation has been that there has been land grab, there has been land expropriation that has been happening. Not so much that, because remember, this campaign did not start with the signing of the Expropriation Act. It's been ongoing since 2017, 2018. I mean, another issue that is raised, it's around the farm matters, and I also highlighted it yesterday to say that, in the report that we received from the police, that indicates that in the period October to December 2024, there was only one farmer who fell victim, who was murdered in a 3-month period. But the impression that is given, because you see, when people talk about land, they include farm matters, Ashraf. But the statistics indicates that there's not been expropriation of land. Also, there's no targeting of farmers or the mass killing of farmers in South Africa, because in the 3 months period, only one farmer fell victim or who was murdered. And in the period, there were 5 farm dwellers. We know who are the farm dwellers. There were 4 employees. We know the people who are employees in the farms. But the impression that's given, it's 1, there's a mass killing of farms. 2, there's a mass expropriation of land that's in the hands of white farmers in South Africa. And that's not true. And Dean McPherson has confirmed that that is not true. So we hope that this information can go to those that are spreading lies about our country, those that are trying to portray democratic South Africa as barbaric, as a country that does not care about all the people living in this country.
Well, I suppose maybe leave it on this, should it be a case of not so much we hope that the information goes to those people, but that the information must go to those people? That means there has to be a representation that absolutely clears it up without any ambiguity to say, this is the state of play in South Africa. Now, the rest of what you're saying, not you, as in the USA, are saying, as per the information provided by them, by AfriForum, is a whole lot of wild speculation. So what I'm saying is, it can't be a case of hope it happens. It has to happen. Don't you think so?
It has to happen. And by the way, up until November, December of last year and January, the successive U.S. ambassadors and all diplomats in South Africa never raised this particular issue. No one raised it with the U.S. To say that, no, we are seeing mass expropriation of land and so forth. So we hope that the president, but also the international relations, use the diplomatic channels to continue, and they must not get fatigued or exhausted to tell the truth about our country in terms of what is really happening in our country. Even when it feels like we are hitting against the wall, the truth must continue to be told. There will come a time that there will be different kind of people from the US and other countries that says, you know what, we have been lied to by organizations like AfriForum, like Kalikiriel. Our responsibility as members of parliament is to continue to tell the truth about our country.
And I think you've done
and
just that.
We'll not get tired to do that.
Well, thanks for asking that right question. That, of course, Member of Parliament, Makashule Ghana, representing, in this case, the Rise Mzansi's caucus whip as well at Rise Mzansi. Appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us, as always, Makashule Ghana. Right, what do you make of that conversation regarding Public Works confirming that no expropriation of land taken place in the period that was asked for a 10-year period, 2014 to 2024. Now, talking about the USA and South Africa, the president's spokesperson has been talking, and we played some other clips early on. There's a whole lot he said about the USA, including Senton Drive and Leila Khalid Drive, that comes up right after this.
CFI, a global leader in online trading, is now in South Africa. Access 15,000 plus instruments, currencies, stocks, metals, crypto CFDs, indices, futures, and more on world-class platforms. Enjoy zero pip spreads, no commission fees, and 24/7 support for confident trading. Visit CFI.trade for a secure, transparent trading experience. Don't miss the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda, Tuesdays at 16:45. Proudly sponsored by CFI, CFI Financial, an authorized financial services provider. T's and C's apply.
Second place, Betopa Clay, and number 1 on the lot, Toulouse, are battling it out in the top of the table clash. They both believe they deserve maximum points. This is the top 14. Rugby the French way. Catch the big clash of giants between Pateau Union Peclair and Stade Rouen on Sunday, 23 March at 10 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Tshwane University of Technology ladies are chasing 3 points. But Copperbelt ladies have a different idea. They want to play great football for the duration of the match to walk away victors. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Catch Mzansi Queens of the beautiful game. TUT Ladies versus Copperbelt Ladies on Saturday 22 March at 10:30 a.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
And Naren Singh commenting via text saying, Ashraf, let AfriForum and et al. And others be summoned to Parliament to explain their position and substantiate their position. Okay, interesting thought indeed. Let's move on to, I did mention earlier on, the President's spokesperson, Vincent Mangwenya, has been speaking about a whole lot of things as part of this morning's media briefing. He touched on the issue of their relationship with Iran, and then spoke about Ebrahim Rasool. And I'll just touch on this now because I understand the request has been that the Joburg City puts a hold on the renaming of that street for now. Okay? Now, we'll talk about that after 5 o'clock, just around 5:10. Listen out for that. But what did he say as well? Mangwenya then spoke about the relationship between South Africa and the USA.
I mean, of course, the President is concerned about the current state of relations with the United States. And the President is on record saying he will lead the intensification of engagements between ourselves and the various levels of the Trump administration to iron out whatever issues that there are. There seems to be a number of issues that are of concern from Washington, and the President is keen to have those issues addressed. Equally, the President is keen that we look at the opportunity to research the relationship between South Africa and the United States, particularly on the trade front, where there are a lot of opportunities to expand the trade relationship. The TTIC is leading a process to look at that basket of tradable goods and look at how we expand it, so that at an appropriate time, when we begin to have escalated engagements between ourselves and the Trump administration, we're able to also take a more forward-looking approach to the relationship, rather than being stuck in a series of protests about things that have been said in the past or things that are being currently said. What we will do, as I've just done now, is to continue correcting distortions where those distortions are being reported from an official level out of the United States. Parallel to that, as I've said, the President is leading that intensification of engagements with the Trump administration to ensure that we are able to engage at the right level and we are able to iron out whatever differences that may exist. But yes, it is a concern that the state of the relationship is where it is, and it is the focus of the President to work towards improving the state of the relationship.
So, we do know that Rasool's coming back home. I said it's Friday. No, it's on Sunday, 11 o'clock. But who's going to replace him? The other day we did a poll on this show and we had some extreme answers, so to speak, from suggestions like what about Kali Kriel to Tony Leon to Julius Malema to Naledi Pandor. All those suggestions came up. But who is going to be the new ambassador to the USA and when? Here's Mangwenya.
To the appointment of the new ambassador to the United States, South Africa's ambassador to the United States, the President is not going to rush that process. He's applying his mind. In fact, the President appreciates the numerous messages that he's received. He's been inundated by messages from people volunteering themselves to be posted in Washington, from people making suggestions of individuals to be considered for Washington. However, the President is going to take his time in considering his options with regards to this appointment The absence of an ambassador in Washington does not mean the absence of engagements with the Trump administration. Equally, just as you have here in South Africa, the US has not appointed an ambassador yet, but we've been able at various levels of government to continue to have engagements with diplomats from the US Embassy. Similarly, in our case, we will continue having engagements with the Trump administration without an ambassador. It's not a process that the president wants to rush. It's a process that he wants to carefully apply his mind on against the prevailing conditions, as well as against the opportunities that we see further down the line from an improved relationship with the Trump administration. Has the president been told about a U.S. ambassador replacement to South Africa? No, he hasn't. From our own distant observation, the process on the U.S. side is yet to take place formally in terms of a nominee that is presented by President Trump and interviewed or to go through the congressional sort of process. And so we will be watching that process like everybody else, but there's been no formal communication to the president on that process. In fact, there's no need for that formal communication. The U.S. has its own process of appointing ambassadors. They will embark on that process, and we will await the announcement when they've concluded.
And I just wonder, lots of speculation, but who is going to be the U.S. president to South Africa, and how will he be treated or dealt with or handled on a day-to-day basis? Just think about that. But we will also have our ambassador to the USA later, if not sooner, right? Now, finally, the spokesperson then spoke about this issue of the return of Ebrahim Rasool. He arrives in South Africa on Sunday, Cape Town, 11 a.m. And here's some advice that the president's spokesperson gave on behalf of the president.
With respect to Ambassador Rasool's imminent arrival back to South Africa, we would like to urge all political formations that are planning various homecoming rallies for Ambassador Rasool to assist us and refrain from partaking or engaging in action that may seem inflammatory and that may worsen the already volatile diplomatic relationship with the United States.
Okay, there we are. Right. So, to remind you, we'll have a chat about the renaming of Sandton Drive and the request to put that on hold coming from the president or the presidency that comes up after 5 o'clock, right? Okay, here's some, let's get some further thoughts that we've got on some of the issues that we've already discussed.
Hi, Ashraf. It's Trichi here in Umgen. How are you? Ashraf, this phase we are on in terms of our relationship with America is necessary. Zimbabwe may be poor, but it's freer than us. It's more free than us. We need this freedom from America. It comes with suffering and discomfort, but it's necessary. Any country that is independent from imperialists from America is always free, and I appreciate it. Let us do this. Let us get off this relationship, and then we'll be a free nation.
Okay, that's one. Here's another one that's topical to the conversation we just had.
Ashraf, this is Ngabs Eqibala. Our ambassador is welcomed. He must just come home, and those will be able to go there at the airport. They must just go there and welcome him as a hero. Number two, we don't need to explain ourselves to America or any other country. Our constitution is clear. Maybe interpreting it for the person who doesn't understand it is fine. Not explain ourselves, no.
Okay, don't need to add to that because it's been touched on so many times. Right, let's get to the news headlines. It's 4:30. Here's Utsile Saku.
Thanks again, Ashraf. In the headlines, 4 people wanted on charges of robbery, murder and extortion have been killed in a shootout with police in Duffs Road in KwaMashu, north of Durban. Transport Minister Barbara Creecy says additional policing will be deployed on critical routes across the country to ensure road safety during the upcoming Easter holidays. Creecy officially launched the 2025 Easter Road Safety Campaign in Pretoria. And the Reserve Bank's Monetary Policy Committee has decided to keep the repo rate unchanged at 7.5%. Details at 5 o'clock with Greg House.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in Parktown is queuing towards Harton Drive, the N1 northbound in Midrand queuing towards Samrand Road, and Daspoort Tunnel in Pretoria queuing at the tunnel. In KZN, Alpine Road southbound is slow moving towards Henry Road. The N3 westbound has a crash reported near the M13 Paradise Valley interchange, and Dumasani Makai Drive is closed between Queen Nandi Drive and the M25 Commercial Highway. In Cape Town, Muway is closed between Spine Road and Palmer Road due to protesting related issues. The M7 checks Harville Drive southbound queuing towards the R300 highway, and the N2 outbound queuing towards Bunga Avenue exit. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
Right, to me, let's talk sport. Let's talk Gavin Hunt and SuperSport disunited.
Oof. SuperSport United have reportedly sacked Gavin Hunt with immediate effect. This is following a string of bad results this season. Now, Matsatsansa are currently languishing in the relegation zone of the Betway Premiership at number 15 with 21 points after 21 games. Assistant coach Andrea Rense is reportedly set to take over on an interim basis and is expected to help the side move up the table when they return from the FIFA international break, which is very, very sad to hear about. I mean, first of all, for me, when I looked at that log, seeing SuperSport United at number 15, I was like, how?
They could get relegated.
How?
Yeah,
and for me, I literally rate Gavin Hunt as a good coach. Is he going through a slump now? Perhaps. Mourinho once said, every single coach, good, somehow goes through a slump.
The question is, who gets him next? Where does he go to next? I don't think he'll be out of a job. That's the point. But here's a comment. Let's play this one from a listener.
Ashraf, good afternoon. Flores here from the beautiful Western Cape. Ashraf, when Tumi comes up, can you please tell her if she agrees with me that Gavin Hunt is going to go to Skakuna United? Have a good job, bye-bye.
Okay, you are the matchmaker.
It's an interesting one, and listen, anything is possible because there's always a merry-go-round in the PSL. I mean, Gavin Hunt has been there since when? 1998, actually.
One of the longest-serving coaches.
Literally. Yeah. And he's been there, so I wouldn't be surprised if he goes there, but we are yet to see. We are yet to see. And this is a developing story, so I'll definitely
Would it be
keep
a
our
good
listeners.
decision if he goes there? I mean, what are his options?
I mean,
who else is looking for a job? Not Sundowns, not Chiefs, right?
No.
Not yet. No.
You know what? I don't know, man. I just think right now he's just going through some sort of a difficult patch.
Okay. Well, everybody else, now you know it. If you're a football club, Gavin's in the hunt, okay? So you can make a plan.
There you have it.
You got more to say, right?
Yeah, but still staying with football, Japan have become the first team to qualify for the 2026 World Cup after 2 goals scored by Daichi Kamada and Takefusa Kubo, giving them a 2-0 win over Bahrain. Now, Japan have been in unstoppable form in the Asian third round of qualifiers and went into the game having won 5 and drawn 1 of their games so far. It will be the 8th straight World Cup appearance. In athletics, former South African 200-meter champion Luxolo Adams says that he remains committed to his legal battle against Athletics South Africa. This is following his Paris Olympic snub. Adams is still reeling from what he calls a humiliating decision by Athletics SA to chop him from Team South Africa and replace him with 400-meter world record holder Wade van Niekerk from last year's Olympics, despite him meeting the 200-meter qualification standard. standards. Now, the Gqeberha-born sprinter was dropped from the 35-member team for allegedly failing to prove his fitness, and he's determined to hold the SSA accountable for the humiliation that he endured.
Yes, it's still on. Like I said, losing the Olympics or getting into the team, I've lost a lot of sponsors. So obviously, that's something that I didn't plan for. So I haven't lost any hope on that.
Well, Adam says that he suffered a vast financial loss.
First of all, I've lost so many sponsors, and then that took a huge toll on me in terms of finances, you know. Now I needed to get into see a therapist, which is expensive. It was not part of my plan preparing for Olympic Games, even though I qualified, but that doesn't matter now. For me, like I said, sports is my passion, so whatever happens doesn't determine or change who I am.
In motorsport, defending MotoGP world champion Jorge Martin, who suffered 2 pre-season crashes, says that he hopes to be back for the 4th round of this year's championship. The Spaniard has missed the opening 2 rounds and had announced that he would not race in Austin on the 29th and 30th of March. Now, Martin missed almost all of the pre-season testing after breaking his right hand and foot in a crash on the opening day of a session in Malaysia. And the next one is in Qatar on April 12th and 13th. Finally, boxing will remain an Olympic sport after the International Olympic Committee unanimously voted for it to be included in the 2028 Games in Los Angeles. Now, the sport was not part of the program for the next Olympics when the schedule was first announced in 2022, but the IOC granted provisional recognition for world boxing as the sport's global body last month before voting for its inclusion at the ongoing session in Greece. With that said, it is a wrap from my side for now.
All right, and Gavin's in the hunt. I'm just saying it again. So we all know that, right? More sport in an hour.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
Masandawana ladies want to emphasize that they are the conquerors of women's football Mzansi. However, University of the Western Cape ladies are confident they will walk away with a pass mark called victory. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League, the meeting of powerhouses. Mamelodi Sundowns ladies versus UWC ladies on Saturday 22 March at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC 1. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Every person, no matter who you are, what music you're inclined to listen to, and what you do with your weekends. You need a weekend playlist. It's that musical mix of music that accompanies the lazy weekends, whether catching up with friends and family or just taking some time to reflect. Tune in to The Soundtrack of Your Life with me, Ernest Pillay, Saturdays and Sundays, 1 to 4 on SAFM.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Okay, let's get to those numbers. Effectively, it's like the weekend now, isn't it? Makwe Masilela, Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. Good to connect with you, right? Local and global markets in a moment, but you've got some thoughts on the interim results for Momentum.
Yes, Ashraf, and afternoon to you and to your listeners. Share price up nicely 8% because of the excellent performance, which was driven by improved underwriting results when it comes to Momentum Insure, strong underwriting performance in cat risk, profits from annuities in Momentum Investments, and also improved new business profitability in Metropolitan Life. And the value of new business is up 40%, recurring premiums up 3%, profits and headline earnings per share up 55%, and the guys approved another 1 billion rand share buyback. And yes, as widely expected, the U.S. Central Bank left their interest rates unchanged and maintained the outlook that suggested that the rates will be cut twice this year. And this morning, the People's Bank of China also left their rates unchanged, and then just like the Bank of England. And we also joined, leaving our repo rate at 7.5% as the Central Bank is concerned about the global and fiscal uncertainties. Today, Ashraf, it was only the Swiss National Bank which managed to cut rates by 25 basis points, and the knee-jerk reaction was the rand to maintain its weakness for the day. And optimism from the U.S. Fed comments last night seems to be fading. Global markets are mixed, with the U.S. up and Europe and South Africa are down. The JSE is down 0.7%. We've been tracked mainly by our industrials, and after jumping 16% so far this year, driven by safe haven demand and expectations of lower interest rates, it's not surprising to see profit-taking kicking in. The yellow metal is down 0.4% at $3,035. Platinum is down almost 2% at $987. And there's a tug of war between the strength in the US dollar and also higher than expected US fuel inventory drawdowns, indicating demand, and also renewed tensions in the Middle East, resulting in oil prices going up. Brent crude is up 0.8% now at $71 a barrel. The rand weakened to 0.6% against the US dollar, is now 18.20, 23.58 against the pound, and 19.71 against the euro.
Okay, perfect. So it's the weekend. You have a good weekend, Makwe.
Have a lovely one too.
Absolutely. It's a rather strange Thursday evening or Thursday afternoon, and it's all about 3 days' time off, I think, for many. Of course, we'll have a show as normal. It's Human Rights Day, so let's not discount that. That's so important. And in that vein, we'll talk about that, Human Rights Day, and the affirmative action dialogues with the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation right after this.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 104.6 FM in Tshwane. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, so it's Human Rights Day tomorrow. Now, the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation, in partnership with the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, will host a dialogue called Affirmative Action as a Means for Ensuring Racial Justice and the Protection of Human Rights. It's such a topical issue, don't you think, right? So that's happening, I understand it's happening tomorrow. Let's find out more about it with Retabile Ratsomo, the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation's Programs Manager for the Promoting of Non-Racialism Program. Retabile, thanks for connecting with us. You've got such an important portfolio.
I do. I definitely do. Thank you so much for having me.
Much appreciated. Right. So you have these dialogues. Let's get to when is it? Is it happening tomorrow?
Yes, it's happening tomorrow from 10 a.m. at the Apartheid Museum.
All right. At 10 a.m. until how long?
Until 12 o'clock latest. So, yeah, that will be happening at the Apartheid Museum tomorrow. And this is a dialogue that will conclude Anti-Racism Week that we've been busy with since the 14th to the 21st. And this particular event is also just leading on from an online campaign that we did where we were dispelling some of the racialized disinformation that's been coming through. So it's a continuation from that.
I understand. Okay, so let's just do the needlework first. I mean, anybody allowed to attend? Is it open to the public?
It is open to the public. Obviously, the auditorium there does have seating limitations, but we will accommodate everyone that wants to come.
Okay, 10 to 12, I got that right. Let's then talk about the essence of the dialogue. So affirmative action as a means for ensuring racial justice and the protection of human rights. It's an interesting one because for many other people listening, some people listening, they would say affirmative action is a means of ensuring racial injustice, as you're very well aware of, right? Tell me more about the program.
Sure. I mean, like you've mentioned, right, with what we've seen happening in the U.S. and some of the executive orders that have come through, the narrative has been that, you know, affirmative action has been used in South Africa as a means to continue racial disparities. And what we are trying to set the record straight is to say, you know, our constitution is very clear to say that we need to, restore the injustices of the past, and affirmative action is one of those tools. So that's what we will be unpacking further in the dialogue to understand why it is that it's important that we still continue with affirmative action, and also to speak about, you know, we've seen the kind of pushbacks against DEI in the States, and it's important for us to understand how that can also affect us as South Africans.
I mean, is the basis of your dialogue, is it a question that needs an answer, or you're saying it as an affirmation, to borrow a phrase from affirmative action? Why I'm asking that is that it's almost strange that we're even having this conversation even now to confirm that, in fact, the affirmative action is a redress as a means of ensuring racial justice.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's, I think what you know, to put it in the words that you use, it's more of an affirmation. We as, you know, civil society, government bodies as well, we understand the need of affirmative action. We understand the burden that the Constitution places on the state to realize that. And so for us, we also understand in our line of work the importance of that, because, you know, we do hear the arguments of we need to move more to a means-based system, but that doesn't address the, you know, the kind of social attitudes to different races or different cultures and ethnicities, even different nationalities. So it's important that you know, we share that information so that people are able to understand, but also affirm the fact that these means, these tools that, you know, our government has utilized are necessary.
Is there a case to be made that the principle of affirmative action as a principle of redress is entrenched, and I support it, right? But that in practical terms, the government, which in the main has been the ANC government, right, up to now, has not implemented it properly with a sense of compassion and empathy for all different groupings in implementing it over the years. I mean, is there a case to be made of that?
Look, I think it hasn't been, you know, equalized or hasn't been implemented in a way that is cognizant of different racial groups. I think that's a hard determination for me to make. But I think what we do need to understand, though, when it comes to this issue, is the fact that there is an obligation that is placed on our government as well, and that it's something that is necessary. I think, like I was saying earlier, you know, we can talk about all the different ways in which we can empower those who are historically disadvantaged, but that doesn't then speak to this kind of social attitudes that we need to address as well. So part of also what we need to talk about and what we will be discussing tomorrow is the challenges that have been there in terms of the implementation of BEE. We do understand, and it's something as an organization we are cognizant of, you know, that BEE hasn't necessarily been implemented in the way that we would like, or that would receive, or kind of what's the word for it, but has brought the results that were initially anticipated.
How would you like to have had BEE implemented?
How would I have liked BEE?
Yeah, you as in yourself or the other Kathrada Foundation.
I mean, I think the challenges that we see with BEE, right, is what we've heard people saying over the years, and saying that it's something that has largely benefited only black elites, right? And I think in that we need to be able to find a medium in terms of implementation of addressing both you know, the kind of uplifting of historically marginalized races, but also the upliftment of those who are disadvantaged economically. So I do think there is space for that to feature in the conversation, and we need to then be able to also promote or shape the policy that we see or we need to reform.
You still there, Retabile? You still there?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah,
yes,
I lost you I just lost you for a moment. It all just went dead, right? Okay. What about? Is there a need? I mean, besides the program that you're hosting, is there a need for workshops and in the workplace? Meaning, I'm trying to think how many workplaces actually have conversations around affirmative action amongst all their staff for them to fully understand why they do what they do and why it's that important in terms of the national agenda.
Yeah, I mean, look, conversations about racism in the workplace are always necessary. I mean, at this point, you know, as South Africans, we obviously see in the media the kind of interpersonal conflicts, racial conflicts that happen. But what we really need to be focused on as a country and as an organization, what we are also focused on is really breaking down the kind of systemic barriers, right? So looking at why is it that, you know, management of top companies only makes up white males, right? And we forget also that, you know, our affirmative action policies don't only speak about race, they speak about gender too. And that's something that we need to continue to promote. These are the questions that we need to ask, but there's always room for improvement. And if there's ideas for that, that's something that needs to be discussed and shape policy going forward as well.
All right. Lastly, Chami, who's involved in the session tomorrow? I mean, who are the speakers? What else do we need to know?
Sure. We do have a representative from the BEE Commission that sits under the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. We also have, I just forgot now, we also have Professor Nikki Volkov, who is the Executive Director of the Wits Center for Diversity Studies. And then we do also have Felicity Harrison, who is the Head of Sustained Dialogues at the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation. And all of these organizations are excluding the PE Commission, is organizations that have formed part of the anti-racism network. So it's organizations that do this day-to-day work as well.
I see, understandably so, right. If people need to know more, they can just Google the Kathrada Foundation. I'm sure they'll get all the details there. And much appreciated. Best wishes for the event, and perhaps we'll reflect on it sometime tomorrow, being Human Rights Day, but the show will continue as normal. Retabile Rotsong, appreciate your time. Thanks for that. Representing the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation ahead of this important dialogue, affirmative action as a means of ensuring racial justice and the protection of human rights. What do you make of that? Anything you'd like to take out of that? But it is now time for me to get a sense of your pulse, so let's get those calls.
For 90 minutes, neighbors will not get along. Bafana Bafana are hunting for 3 points, but Dikwena want to cause an upset. This is the FIFA World Cup 2026 African qualifier. Witness the human rights pitch rivalry between South Africa and Lesotho on Friday, 21 March at 5:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, S3 and SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Second place, Betopo Glare, and number 1 on the lot, Toulouse, are battling it out in the top of the table clash. They both believe they deserve maximum points. This is the top 14. Rugby, the French way. Catch the big clash of giants between Pateau Union Pegler and Stade Telouan on Sunday, 23 March at 10 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Hi, I'm Zycard. Catch me every Saturday from 7 to 9 p.m. on Spotlight as we bring you blow-by-blow sporting action, news. That's Spotlight every Saturday. You don't want to miss it.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
All right, let's get to your thoughts, right? Tsepo in Pretoria, you first up. What's your point?
Hey, Ashraf.
Yep.
Ashraf, I've got a challenge with Eskom. I was listening to the guy who's in charge of energy at NERSA in one of the radio stations and taking what goes into the price increase. And my view is that means when they say they consider all the input costs of Eskom and they also allocate some profit on the increase, that means the price that goes to municipality already covers the maintenance of the system. Because if Eskom tariff increase is dependent on grid management and plus their input cost, the coal and all of these things, and that's why they get to a figure. And that figure is sold to the municipality. So municipalities are resellers of this product. But the tariff that is charged on municipality already includes the increase. Why municipalities are charging us the share charges? Because they say they are a reseller of energy, but they're not going to get their money to maintain the grid from the share charges. For instance, where I'm staying in one of the municipalities, there's about 450 surcharges, which is really allocation for grid management for municipalities. Now, my view is if the price of the tariff given to Eskom already includes the management of the grid, and we're paying exactly that, because when it is pushed to us, it is Eskom plus the increase that is given to the...
All right, Tsepo, I don't have those figures in front of me, but I think it's something we may just look into and find out exactly. If anybody else knows better, just right now, they can certainly call in too, okay, just to hopefully answer their question about, are there contradictions in how they've come up with their pricing? And of course, the reality is that they need to charge a price. They need to be profitable on one hand, as a state-owned enterprise, but also they can't push the prices to a point where people can't afford it. And they can't afford it now already. We know that anyway, isn't it? Rex in Leidenburg, go for it, Rex.
I'm a commercial farmer. I'm not particularly worried about this land grab. What does worry me is that when the municipal election comes up, these municipal candidates are going to go around the township promising to take this farm, and then after the election, it's not going to happen, but they will have won the election. Remember the last election, you had people like Fifi Mbalula going around the townships, promising people could go into medic clinic and get free treatment. I don't know if you know of anybody that's got... It didn't happen. The previous election, Malema was gaining a lot of traction with his land grab demands. Ramaphosa stole his thunder by promising to debate it in Parliament. Now, they did debate it in Parliament. Now, I phoned up the local DA MP, and she said, forget it, it's never going to get through. Now, it didn't get passed, but the ANC won the election. So it's just one big election ploy.
Okay. So your point that you're making is this, that political parties and leaders of political parties make widely exaggerated claims in the build-up to an election to be able to secure votes, and many of those exaggerated claims can never, ever see the light of day because they just can't be. Is that what you're saying, right?
Yeah, but the farmers have been putting up with this land grab threat for the last 20 years. It didn't start yesterday. When it comes to AgriForum and Trump, his last big story that blew up was that he accused the Venezuelans of eating cats and dogs. They never ate cats and dogs. So I don't know what AfriForum and Trump discussed. Trump makes things up, and then other people have got to sort out the mess.
Well, clearly we know that. Rex,
okay, and then as for farm murders, can I say about farm murders?
Very quickly, please.
If farm murders are down, it's because the farmers are well organized. Most of these guys that do farm attacks are desperados. They're foreign nationals. They're not difficult to catch because the farm workers always help you catch them.
I heard that.
You've got to catch them first time.
I heard that. I think Rex, your point is valid. Look, crime is incredibly high in South Africa. There's no question. I think that's the point. That if there are farm murders, it's not necessarily because they are being attacked because they're white Afrikaner farmers. There are people, whoever they are, locals or foreigners, who are hell-bent on committing acts of crime and killing people for their own expedience. And I think that's the narrative that is more accurate more than anything else, right? Thanks for that. Bruce in Gqeberha, hi.
Yes, thanks so much, Ashraf. The caller 2 or 3 ago that touted the noble cause of freedom.
Yeah.
And it's worth the pain and suffering. Either does not understand freedom or has never really suffered proper hunger.
Yeah, he spoke about Zimbabwe. Yeah.
Affirmative action in its current form works at a specific level, but it's never going to achieve the results that we want. We need major scale improvements. We need to change the model. In of itself, it's not a poor idea, but the execution is a major problem. But what I really want to speak to you about is the effect of colonization that's had on us and on the Western world, and by implications, us generally as a society, that we're beset by this reductionist thinking. It's a kind of colonization mind virus in the West.
So how would you change
one or the other?
How would you change affirmative action then? What would you change it to?
Affirmative action. Well, we firstly will understand what we're doing at the core is grow the economy. I don't think we seem to miss the basic principles of economy. Like the ANC think there's an endless supply of money. They don't understand we're bankrupt. There's no talk about, I always bring the analogy in, if the government was running Kaiser Chiefs at its height and its glory days, if they took over the club, and you compare to what's happening today, the first thing they would have done is sold off the best players, stripped out the assets, not invest in the youth, poorly educate the administration, bring in jobs for pals. It just goes on and on. And every aspect of the club has failed in its administration. So we're in this situation today where we're now reaching for the ultimate overcompensation. It's just a tool in the armory of the people who don't understand the issues, don't understand that wealth can be multiplied.
Bruce, you've made your point. I'm going to move on. Bruce, you made your point, Bruce. Bruce, thanks for that. You made your point. I don't want you to repeat it because I want to get another call or two in before we get to the news, right? I mean, that's just a balancing act of time and comment. Warren in Stutterheim. Go for it, Warren.
Good afternoon, Ashraf.
Good afternoon.
And all listeners.
Thank you.
I hope that this quote will really lighten the atmosphere a bit. This is by George Bernard Shaw, a 100% Irishman who lived in the late 1800s and early 1900s. Now, he held a view that of Englishmen in very low esteem. He really held them in low esteem. But he also then held the view that 100% of Americans are 99% idiots. That's it. It's a quote from George Bernard Shaw.
That's your quote. Okay. I wonder
No. It's
his quote. I mean, I understand that. That's his quote. Okay. Got that. Warren got that point. I wonder whether he's seen favorably in the USA. I'm talking about George Bernard Shaw. Let's see if I can squeeze in one more call. Here's another one on Donald Trump.
Ashraf,
Unfortunately, the damage has been done. When I drive to work, I listen to your show, and if I don't listen to your show, I listen to this other show on the local radio. And most of the Republicans members, especially in the red states, they believe what the president is saying. And also the owner of X is not even making it easier for South Africa with the things that he posts on X, and he has a huge following, as you know. And I feel like, the South African country is really not making it any better. I feel like they're folding, because the real punishment is because South Africa sided with Palestine, and that's what the spokesperson of the Department of State here stated, that they punished their allies. So I don't think it's the diplomatic mess that South Africa finds themselves in right now is going to be resolved anytime soon. And AfriForum as well, they've just done the damage.
Okay, lots to consider on that one. South Africa folding, what should we then do in response to the USA? It is a delicate act, and you have to get it right, isn't it? Okay, let's get to the news. It's 5 o'clock. Here's Greg Close.
Thank you, Ashraf. In this news update, 4 suspects killed in KZN shootout, and SA defends relationship with Iran. Good day to you. 4 people wanted on charges of robbery, murder and extortion have been killed in a shootout with police in KwaMashu, north of Durban. Police spokesperson Paul Magwaza says the suspect's vehicle was intercepted by the police. He says the suspects then opened fire on officers.
During the shootout, 3 suspects were fatally wounded. A search in the vicinity of the crime scene led to the discovery of a 4th suspect who had been shot and killed but tried to flee. The suspects were found in possession of 3 firearms. No police officer was injured during the shootout. The suspects will be profiled to see if they are not linked in any other crimes.
The Transport Minister Barbara Creecy says additional policing will be deployed on critical routes across the country to ensure road safety during the upcoming Easter holidays. She officially launched the Easter Road Safety Campaign in Pretoria.
We will also be ensuring that throughout this period our joint operation centres are operating, where municipalities, provinces and ourselves work together, and we will be focusing on critical routes across the country that require additional policing. This includes the N4, the R71, Libode on the N2 and the Mtata's R61, the R54, the N3, the N2, the N4 from Middleburg to Gauteng, and the R66 in KZN.
The Reserve Bank's Monetary Policy Committee's decided to keep the repo rate unchanged at 7.5% and the prime lending rate at 11%. The Reserve Bank Governor, Lesetja Kganyago, delivered the committee's decision in Pretoria today.
These factors offset pressure from the proposed VAT increases, which we think will add about 0.2 percentage points to headline inflation. We see risks to this forecast on both the upside and the downside, with the balance of risks in the medium term skewed to the upside. Against this backdrop, the MPC decided to keep the policy rate unchanged at 7.5%. 4 members preferred this action, while 2 favored a cut of 25 basis points.
The MK party says their by-election win in the Western Cape is an historic one, saying it's just the tip of the iceberg in the build-up to next year's local government elections. The party snatched a ward in the Saldanha Bay municipality from the ANC. Since its formation, the MK party has taken 5 seats from the ANC. Meanwhile, the ANC has managed to retain a ward in the city of Johannesburg and a ward in the Joe Marolong municipality in the Northern Cape province. MK party spokesperson Nklamulo Ntlelo.
We welcome the Mkhonto weSizwe win, and we know that this is only the beginning, that Mkhonto weSizwe party will win further wards in the Western Cape and throughout the country. This also comes off the back of a win in the KZN region, being with Richmond.
An elderly couple's been found dead in their home outside Zanin in Limpopo. According to police, the deceased, aged 83 and 80 years old, were found hanged in separate rooms in their house. Police say the deceased don't have visible injuries and a post-mortem is yet to be conducted. Police investigations are continuing. Finally, the presidency insists that South Africa doesn't have a sinister relationship with Iran. Speaking at a media briefing in Pretoria today, presidential spokesperson Vincent Magwenya said this is part of government's campaign to correct distortions that have been leading to a strained relationship with the U.S. There have been concerns by the U.S. about South Africa's relations with Iran, with suggestions that the two could be collaborating on building their nuclear capabilities. However, Magwenya says that the two countries share historical good relations, with Iran having supported South African liberation movements.
By the time a democratic government took over the leadership of this country, in 1994, South Africa had ceased in engaging in any form of nuclear capacity development for weapons purposes. And again, we will reject the assertion that we have a sinister program with Iran that's aimed at generating some form of nuclear weapons program or capacity for South Africa. We're not involved in that.
Top story: 4 people wanted on charges of robbery, murder and extortion have been killed in a shootout with police in KwaMashu, north of Durban. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Gous.
In sports, SuperSport United sack Gavin Hunt and Etzebeth out of Zebra game. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N3 southbound in Alexandra is queuing towards London Road, the N3 southbound in Germiston queuing towards Geldenhuys interchange, and the N1 northbound in Pretoria queuing towards Garsfontein Road. In KZN, the N3 westbound in Pietermaritzburg has a stationary truck reported before Market Road. The N2 southbound has a crash before the M25 Commercial Highway exit, and the N3 westbound a crash near the M13 Paradise Valley interchange. In the Eastern Cape, on the R61 road collapse incident reported between Tata and Port St John's with stop-go controls at 2 locations, and tracks are prohibited. In Cape Town, the N1 inbound queuing towards the M5 South off-ramp at Koeberg interchange, the M3 inbound is queuing towards Hospital Bend, and the M5 northbound queuing towards the N1 Koeberg interchange. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Stay safe on the roads. SAFM is with you.
Dr. Nikki Alexander, Dr. Thomas Chamberlain, and Dr. Jack Hodgson form a dedicated team of forensic pathologists who try to work out how and why the victim died. This series sees Nikki investigate a murder that's a carbon copy of a case from her past. She soon suspects that the killings are personal to her. But who will believe her? Meanwhile, Jack creates tension when he finds himself aligned with a police complaints investigator over the accidental shooting of a girl by armed police. And a seemingly random killing in the remote countrysides leads Nikki and Jack into the dangerous underbelly of a criminal world. This is Silent Witness, Thursdays and Fridays at 10 p.m. Starts 20 February only on S3. Open up.
Stunks and Negati want to attack their visitors from the first whistle to the end. But the Dodos are confident they will toast to victory after the final whistle. Both nations are thirsty for maximum points. This is the FIFA World Cup 2026 African qualifier. Experience the joy of African football. Eswatini versus Mauritius on Sunday, 23 March at 3 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Hi, I'm Khomotso KG Mweketi, and I believe in music's ability to connect, to heal, to remind, and to bring joy. And each week on my Saturday and Sunday show Seasons right here on SAFM, I endeavor to do just that. So join the movement of Seasons every Saturday and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's addictive. You might invite a friend. Seasons, only on SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide with me, KG Mweketi.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Ever so often I bump into a person telling me they've listened to the show, The National Pulse, for the very first time. So let me throw this out to you. Are you one of those people listening to the show for the very first time? If that's the case, I'd love to know. So just how about WhatsApping me, 0614 104 107 in text form, and saying, hey, yes, I'm listening for the very first time. Or tweet it out as well. Just tag SFM Radio and myself, Ashraf Garda. I would appreciate that anyway. Right. We've got two stories, two issues to talk about. Both are linked to street name changes, by the way. One in the Braamfontein area, which is part of Joburg, downtown Joburg, right? And the other is the controversial one that's been dragging on for a while, the issue of the renaming of Santon Drive to Leila Khalid Drive, right? Remember, she's the Palestinian activist. Some say activist, some say terrorist, depends who you talk to. But she's the activist who then effectively hijacked the plane, all to gain the attention of the world around the state of the Palestinian people. Now, that issue that went to a vote in the Joburg Council last week and was passed, in fact, has taken a turn of sorts. Let's find out more, firstly, by introducing Professor Dirk Coetzee, who's the professor in the Department of Political Sciences at UNISA. Prof. Coetzee, appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting here on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Right. Before we get talking, let me play a clip from the presidential spokesperson, Vincent Magwenya, who then referenced the issue of Santon Drive or Leila Khalid Drive. And this is what he said.
On the renaming of Santon Drive, the government is engaging with the city of Johannesburg regarding the renaming of the Santon Drive street. This is part of the needed consultation process, which is also prescribed within our statutory procedures. It further encourages a transparent process that invites the public to have a view that is expressed openly. It is also part of the intergovernmental cooperative process. As it stands, government has a historical mandate to rename the streets in South Africa to reflect and set apart the new dispensation from the old one. The renaming of streets remains one of our democratic society's redress of the past injustices of colonialism and apartheid. However, we recognize the diplomatic sensitivities around the renaming of Santon Drive, particularly with the United States of America. It is for this reason that national government, through the Department of International Relations and Cooperation, is in talks with the city of Johannesburg. The purpose of these talks is to agree a process that will allow the national executive to manage the diplomatic tensions with the United States without further inflaming the situation.
Okay, there we are. It's an interesting turn of events, I would think. Maybe interesting is a mild word to use. Professor Dirk Coetzee with me, right? So, Prof. Coetzee, let's understand this, right? Without getting into the merits and the demerits of the actual names, right? If I'm reading it correctly, this vote was already passed in Joburg last week. That means the city of Joburg, according to my understanding, has every right now to change the name of Santon Drive to Leila Khalid Drive. But government, central government, are wanting to take that decision away from the city of Joburg and make the decision nationally because of other international sensitivities. Am I reading that correctly?
Yes, I think you are correct in your interpretation of it. I don't think what we should say is that the government is taking the decision. I think what they put pressure on Johannesburg Metro Council in order to, let's say, revisit this decision. It's not that they take that decision-making right away from them. So I think, and that is why you refer to the COGTA, the involvement of COGTA also, is that the three spheres of government are related to each other. It's not that they stand in isolation of each other. And I think this is where the national government is coming in order to say, well, from a national perspective, and the international relations are the priority, the prerogative of the national government. And I think if that's the way in which they approach it, then they might have a case to say, well, on the basis of that, please reconsider it.
Okay, but I mean, here's the point again. I'm talking from a technical, legal point of view. The very fact they would say reconsider it, I mean, you reconsider a decision made means you are gently asking them to turn that decision around, isn't it?
Yes, that is indeed so. And I think, to give maybe a little bit of background around it, is that the US has said that if the name of the street is changed, it's where the US consulate is. Then they are going to withdraw the consulate, not move it to some other place, but simply withdraw it from Johannesburg.
Okay. Now has the US, but has the USA actually said that? I mean, there's been so much information coming through on the X or the Twitter platforms, and there's difference between opinion and fact, right? So has the US government itself actually made that point to say, you rename this place to Leila Khalid Drive, and we will pull out the embassy from South Africa?
No, it's not the embassy. It's the consulate.
It's the consulate, sorry. Yes, I understand that. The embassy in Pretoria.
The embassy is here in Pretoria or Botswana.
Yes, okay.
But the consulate is very important because it's the place where you apply for visas, for example.
Yes.
You can't do it at the embassy. If that institution doesn't exist, South Africans who want to visit the US will possibly have to go to some other neighboring countries where there is a consulate.
Okay, but so just to get clarity, has the USA actually made that statement then, that we will withdraw that consulate?
The US way of making statements is sometimes it's on X. That's the way in which, for example, our ambassador has been now given the instruction to leave the country. So, as I understand it, it is the official position of the US government or the State Department. I'm not sure on which platform they've stated it, but as my understanding is that's the official position, yes.
Okay. What then do you feel about South Africa's position now? When I say South Africa, national government led by the president in terms of asking the rethink, looking at the merits of the case. Here's a person who's a Palestinian. The issue of Palestine and Israel is a hot potato, as we know. The ICJ issue is something that the USA has publicly said that it's one of the issues why they've revisited their relationship with South Africa. Here's a person who is seen as a freedom fighter, by many people trying to assert Palestinian rights, but for others as a terrorist hijacker because of what she did, I think, in the 70s, right? How do you think South Africa right now are managing this process in terms of what was proposed today?
Well, I think you can either focus on this very particular issue, and then it is very much about Johannesburg and the government of Johannesburg. If you look at the overall relationship between South Africa and the Palestinians, then you must go up to the Hague and the ICJ case, which is obviously much more and much bigger and attract much more international attention than the naming of a street. So I think this is in the end the question. This is not a single case about whether South Africa supports the Palestinians or not. And it is for the government, and that is always the problem of being in government and being especially involved in diplomacy. You have to weigh up different interests. It's not an either-or situation. It's not either, yes, it's renamed or not renamed, either that you are seen to support the Palestinian cause or not. It's about now the different interests that they have to determine. And I think this is the tricky situation.
Okay. I remember at the State of the Nation address, the president made the point where telling the world we will not be bullied. Would you see this as an example of South Africa being bullied out of a decision?
Well, this is definitely international pressure, but I can also say to you it's not unique. Here in Tshwane, the Dutch embassy or Dutch government did exactly the same. The Dutch embassy was in a street which is called Queen Wilhelmina Road. They changed it to Florence Ribeiro. They almost threatened to pull out also. So this is very much about our countries and the way in which they see their attachment to a country in terms of historical associations. How they obviously look at it from their own interest and their own perspective. And it is the host country who must ultimately decide what to do or whether they concede to pressure like this. I think where we are stand at the moment is this is not an incident in isolation. Take it in terms of the bigger picture now of the Trump approach to countries like South Africa. Whether it is about AGOA, whether it is about the ambassador that's sent back to South Africa, whether it's about possible sanctions, all these issues are has become now part of this particular package of that we are dealing with. And I think this is why the national government became involved in.
Okay.
If the Trump context didn't exist, I didn't think that the national government would become involved. But it's a much more loaded issue now than simply the street now.
So would you say, in conclusion then, I mean, this is a case of sometimes not doing what is right, but doing the right thing in terms of what is in the greater national interest, although it may not be palatable to many people listening to us right now and supporters of government or the ANC or whatever is perceived as the GNU too?
Yes, and what I actually expect is that they won't take any decision. They will keep the situation in abeyance until they have a better idea of what is the right thing to do.
Okay, delaying tactics is a form of diplomacy. I certainly get that. Thank you for your time. Much appreciated, Professor Dirk Coetzee, Professor in the Department of Political Science at UNISA. So there you are. It's been a long debate around Sandton Drive being renamed Leila Khalid Drive. That vote was passed, but now national government is saying, put that on hold for now. What do you make of that?
Honey, what are you doing?
I'm stretching for tonight.
I thought you're not dancing at bachelorette parties anymore.
Baby, we need the money to put Johnny through matric, mos.
And what's the police uniform for?
The clients feel safer when I wear it.
No, man, just sell your bucky to We Buy Cars. They give the best prices and they pay you within minutes.
Okay, but can I just go and dance one more time, please? You know how much I love it.
No, the buyer's already on his way here.
Wow, okay.
Strapped for cash? Just sell your vehicle to We Buy Cars. The easiest way to sell your car by far.
Second place, Beto Pekle, and number one on the lot, Toulouse, are battling it out in the top of the table clash. They both believe they deserve maximum points. This is the top 14. Rugby the French way. Catch the big clash of giants between Beto Union Pekle and Stade Terouanne on Sunday, 23 March at 10 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Masandawana ladies want to emphasize that they are the conquerors of women's football Mzansi. However, University of the Western Cape ladies are confident they will walk away with a pass mark called victory. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League, the meeting of powerhouses. Mamelodi Sundowns ladies versus UWC ladies on Saturday 22 March at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC 1. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
So from one street name issue in the city of Johannesburg, or broader Joburg, to another street name issue in the city of Johannesburg. Earlier this month, the city of Joburg commenced a public consultation process to rename De Beer Street in Braamfontein. You may know the name De Beer Street in Braamfontein, very close to the Wits University, by the way, to Mthokozisi Mtumba Street. Now, why? Well, the 10th of March 2025 marks 4 years since Mtumba was shot and killed during the Wits student protest. Remember, around Fees Must Fall, that spilled into the streets of Braamfontein, right? So there's been a response to that, and Seri, right? They have a position on this. So let's get the thoughts of the Seri researcher. That's Tato Masangwako. Thank you for your time, Tato. I appreciate you connecting on the National Pulse.
Hi, Mr. Gardner. Thank you so much for having me.
Leave the Mr. out. Just Ashraf is absolutely fine, right? You have a position on this as Seri. Tell me, what is it?
We are in full support of the city of Johannesburg renaming De Beer Street in honor of Mr. Mtumba. For us, we still remember that day 4 years ago when the students were protesting in Bram. Our offices are in Braamfontein, and we just remember just how shocking that was. So we fully support the renaming as a way of honoring him, but also as an important reminder of the cost of police brutality in our country.
Okay, and now I think the point of reminder and remembering what was really a sad loss of life, I think, is important. Again, the issue of do we have to have a street name renaming? You know, we've had the other issue about Sandton, that's another conversation, but why a street name renaming? Why not something else?
Look, there are a range of ways that we could mark this particular loss of life. De Beer Street is a short street, but that was where he was killed, right? He wasn't a student that was protesting. He was a bystander. So what happened there was really tragic. We don't support, like a wholesale renaming of all streets in honor of victims of police violence. I don't think that's what we're advocating for. But this is an important way of remembering what happened in Braamfontein as a result of reckless policing. And in this case, the family has pursued justice via a range of other avenues. As you'll know, in 2022, 4 officers who stood trial for Mr. Ntumba's murder, as well as the attempted murder of 3 other students who were shot at, they were all acquitted. The state is appealing that, and while that process is ongoing, the family is also pursuing civil proceedings. So, justice and acknowledgement and accountability can come in a range of ways, and this, I think, is an initiative that was started by a collective in Braamfontein as a way of honoring Mr. Ntumba's.
And will the honoring of Ntumba finally bring about a sense of peace and justice to the family?
I understand that the family gave their blessing for this, but no, that would not be enough, right? It's more symbolic, and I imagine for victims of police violence, the real form of justice is in knowing that the police don't get to do this to someone again, right? So some form of redress, non-repetition of violations is really important, and if the officers who were responsible for his death actually did, get successfully held accountable, that would be, I think, important. But, none of this brings him back, but it's important that we learn important lessons in the same way that, we're still trying to get the state to take acknowledgement for what happened in Marikana. Right? These are victims of state violence for whom there has been no justice.
So you're still at the public consultation stage. I would think that's early days, right? What has been the response so far? You've been able to glean a public response from the entire city of Joburg, but specifically from the people who live around or work around the Braamfontein area as Seri does?
So I must just be clear, this is not an initiative that Seri has started, but we're in support of it. So we're just trying to raise public awareness around the issue. I believe the motion was passed through council, and now it's the consultation process. And if that gets enough support, then I imagine it would go through. So there has been a group of people that have initiated this and spearheaded it, and led the engagements with the city of Johannesburg in the renaming of De Beer Street.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to add to that debate around the renaming of the street?
I would honestly just want to encourage members of the public to read up about it. If you don't know what happened, just find out and see if you could actually spare a moment to support the street renaming. The process is open until the end of this month, on the 31st of March, and emails can be sent to 2 officials in the city of Johannesburg. We've put out a statement on it, so that information is available if you visit our website or our social media. And we've also developed a draft email that people can adapt to create their own submissions in support of this renaming.
Okay, much appreciate your time. Thank you for that. That's Tato Masangwako from the researcher at SERI, which is the Socio-Economic Rights Institute. They support the renaming of De Beer Street in Braamfontein to Mthokozisi Ntumba Street. What do you make of that? That is in reflection to honor really the fact that he was killed 4 years ago, very much around that very short street, just very close to Wits University. That's on the 10th of March. It'll be 4 years. Well, it was 4 years on the 10th of March. Right. Let's get your calls, your thoughts on some of the issues. What we'll do, we won't do it right now, but in about 10 minutes time, 10, 12 minutes time, we'll take your calls. You can call in, you can WhatsApp, text, voice note messages, and of course you can also post on the Twitter platform, right? What is it that gets your concerns? A, the issue about the renaming of De Beers Street. You can give me your thoughts. Then the issue now, which is certainly a big international political story now around Senton Drive and Leila Khalid Drive. What do you make of that? And some of the other issues that has been discussed by government today, and some of the other issues that we've covered all throughout the show here on the National Pulse. I certainly want to get a sense of your pulse too. 5:30, it's time for the news headlines with Greg House.
And a look at the headlines. The Basic Education Minister's handed over newly built ablution facilities at 2 schools in the Eastern Cape. 4 people wanted on charges of robbery, murder and extortion have been killed in a shootout with police in KwaMashu, north of Durban. And Hamas says it's launched rockets at Israel from Gaza. A full update at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in Parktown, slow moving towards Houghton Drive. The M1 southbound is queuing through Crown interchange towards Boysons. Cedar Road, westbound in Fourways, has a crash near Valley Road. And the N1 northbound in Pretoria has a crash before the N4 Witbank Highway. In KZN, the N2 southbound has a crash before the M25 Commercial Highway exit. All lanes are open, queuing traffic. The N3 westbound has a crash near the M13 Paradise Valley interchange, and the M13 westbound in Kloof has a crash report near Village Road. In Cape Town, the N2 outbound has a crash and breakdown before Spine Road. The R300 southbound is slow moving towards the N2 highway, and Valhalla Drive southbound in Epping, slow moving between Owen Road and Myrtle Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tumi Nkgapele.
Right, Tumi, let's talk. We spoke about Gavin Hunt. Has he moved to a new club as yet?
No, not as yet.
Okay.
He's still in the hunt for a job.
Okay, got that.
Well, we start things off with football this hour, where the Premier Soccer League has announced the postponed Nedbank Cup quarter-final fixture between Mamelodi Sundowns and Sekhukhune United will be played next week Friday at the Lucas Moripe Stadium at 7 p.m. That match was postponed earlier this month due to a double booking after a FIFA Under-17 Women's World Cup qualifier between South Africa and Nigeria was scheduled at the same venue. Meanwhile, SuperSport United have reportedly sacked Gavin Hunt with immediate effect. This is following a string of bad results this season. Matsatsantsa are currently languishing in the relegation zone of the Betway Premiership at number 15 with 21 points after 21 games. Assistant coach Andre Arense is reportedly set to take over on an interim basis and is expected to help the side move up the table when they return from the FIFA international break. Elsewhere, Japan have become the first team to qualify for the 2026 World Cup after second half goals from Daiichi Kamada and Takefusa Kubo, giving them a 2-0 win over Bahrain. Now, Japan have been in unstoppable form in the Asian third round of qualifiers and went on into this particular game having won 5 and drawn 1 of their games so far. It will be their 8th straight World Cup appearance. I mean, just thinking about Japan, Ashraf, do you remember how clean the fans were? They would literally clean the stadium after their games.
The fans were not clean. They kept the stadium clean.
I mean,
that's the difference.
I would say they are clean.
Yeah.
Like,
no,
it was
the culture
crazy.
is amazing.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Sure. Now they're the
They
first nation
cleaned up
to...
everything else. So basically, they cleaned up the qualifiers. I mean, can I say that? They've cleaned up the qualifiers to be the first nation to qualify.
Literally.
And they'd like to be the last nation to leave the World Cup. I mean, that's just their wish list. Anyway, but I mean, you're right. Their culture, it's something we've spoken about, their culture of cleaning up everybody else's mess
Sure.
is, it's so admirable.
Well, from one nation to the next, Banyana coach Desiree Ellis has named a full-strength squad for 2 upcoming friendly internationals against Malawi on the 5th and the 8th of April. Some notable inclusions include JVW's Mpumi Nyandeni, who returns to the fold following a prolonged absence, and she's hoping to finally get her 150th cap, and regulars such as Bambanani Mbani, Karabo Dlamini and Wendy Shongwe have all been left out due to injury. Now, former skipper Refilwe Jane is she remains out. This is despite her return to football recently. In rugby, the Sharks have been boosted by the return of Andre Esterhuizen for round 13 of the Vodacom URC clash against Zebre Palmer at Kings Park on Saturday. Esterhuizen is set to make his long-awaited return from injury after being named on the bench by head coach John Plumtree. Now, the Springbok World Cup champion has been sidelined since the end of December due to a knee surgery. However, Boglock Eben Itzebeth, who has suffered from recurring concussion symptoms, remains sidelined. Lukhanyo Am and Siamasuku are also notable absentees, and Sia Kolisi will captain the side, while Vincent Chituka returns to the starting 15, replacing Lapis Labaskachni at blind side flanker in the only change among the forwards. In tennis, world number 3 Carlos Alcaraz has distanced himself from the lawsuit that is filed by the Professional Tennis Players Association against the governing bodies of the sport, saying that it actually caught him by surprise. The PTPA, which is an advocacy group co-established by Novak Djokovic, filed the lawsuit on Tuesday, accusing the ATP, WTA, International Tennis Federation and International Tennis Integrity Agency of anti-competitive practices. Then in motorsport, defending MotoGP world champion Jorge Martin, who suffered 2 preseason crashes, says that he hopes to be back for the 4th round of this year's championship. The Spaniard has missed the opening 2 rounds and announced that he would not race in Austin on the 29th and 30th of March. Now, he missed almost all preseason testing after breaking his right hand and foot in a crash on the opening day of session in Malaysia. And the next race is in Qatar, and it's happening on the 12th and the 13th of April. That's it. It is a wrap from my side.
You know what, before I let you go, so you know there was this IOC presidential election.
Yes.
I think it's just been finalized. Did you see that? So the president of the IOC now is Kirsty Coventry, made in Zimbabwe, right?
The lady.
Olympic
She's actually
swimmer.
this. Yeah, she's actually she's the sports minister in Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing.
I had the privilege of interviewing her a long time ago.
Nice.
She-
Maybe we can
look
have her
up
on
that
the show
interview. Well,
soon.
I have no contact with her now, but I suppose if you interviewed a person once, you always have contact with the person, right? Who knows? So there, I hear that just come through now. IOC President Kirsty Coventry. Interesting indeed. You better say goodbye, otherwise I get a flood of complaints from people.
With that said, ke nna Tumeng Kgapela, Modimo ke yo.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
Bafana are taking on Lesotho at the new Peter Mokaba Stadium on the 21st of March 2025 at 6 p.m. for the FIFA World Cup 2026 qualifier. Come early, dressed to commemorate Human Rights Day and support Bafana for a chance to win prizes from our host, Limpopo Government and Polokwane Municipality. Gates open at 3 p.m. and tickets start from 70 Rand for adults with special rates available at 40 Rand for children under 12 at all Ticket Pro outlets. If you can't make it to Polokwane, catch the game live on S3 at 6 p.m. Or visit sabcsport.com. For more details, visit safa.net and Bafana on X and TikTok. Slangs and Negati want to attack their visitors from the first whistle to the end. But the Dodos are confident they will toast to victory after the final whistle. Both nations are thirsty for maximum points. This is the FIFA World Cup 2026 African qualifier. Experience the joy of African football. Eswatini versus Mauritius on Sunday, 23 March at 3 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
From the shows that bring us laughter to the moments that inspire us, your SABC TV license makes it all possible. Every license paid supports local stories, top talent, and the programs that unite South Africa. Pay your TV license today. Visit tvlic.co.za or your nearest retail outlet. Your screen, your story. Together, we make it happen.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
So, yeah, lots of comment now about Kirsty Coventry being, the president of the International Olympic Committee. She's the first woman president. She's also the first African, and she's the first Zimbabwean president. And she was an Olympic swimmer of note many, many years ago. Right, let's put sport on pause. Jimmy Muyaha, it's like the weekend of SAFM Market Update. You still have a show tonight, right, at 6 o'clock? I'm just checking.
Good afternoon,
Ashraf. It is the weekend. Just checking.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to the listeners. We certainly still have a show and we still have news to report on, and it's quite an interesting show to have on a Thursday. There's a lot of billions and billions and billions out there. We're going to be speaking to the FSCA around the billions that they see in unclaimed assets across various areas, across various markets, across kind of various sectors as well. They are, of course, the regulatory body that regulates financial services companies, and they're seeing unclaimed assets across death benefits, across retirement and pension benefits, even across some of the things that we've looked at in the past, like the unclaimed shares that the JSE was speaking to us about a couple of weeks ago. This figure, when they last estimated this, was around 88 billion rand as of 2021. So 4 years later, we're going to take a look at potentially how much more that money could be and what that money could be doing. And then we stick to the conversation of billions. We're going to be speaking to the CEO at the Momentum Group. They gave us an update on how their first 6 months of the year have started. And just one of the standout figures, in the first 6 months, they generated 2.6 billion rand in cash flow, or in operating cash. So that business clearly doing very well. There's money out there, depending on where it is that you are looking. We're going to continue our conversations with a conversation with the team at Liberty, or the Standard Bank Group rather, as we reflect on that interest rate decision that came in earlier this afternoon. I know it's been something that has been moving the national pulse. It's something that will continue to move our pulses no matter when we have these decisions. It's something that's always at the top of our minds, and it's something that we always need to keep an eye on. So we're going to look at that. We're going to reflect on what it means. I know you caught up with Sifiso Skenjana a little earlier about that as well. We're going to be speaking to the Liberty Group around some of the permutations, expectations, and everything else in between as a result of this interest rate. More importantly, what it means for consumers. I think we often look at these decisions and forget that the consumers are also still affected by this. So we're going to look at that as well. And then we're going to wrap up the show with an SME, because it's a Thursday. We do that every Thursday. We love spotlighting small businesses that are doing exceptionally well and that are changing things around them for the better. So we're going to speak to an SME. We're going to speak to the founder of a company called The Good App. We're going to get a sense of what it is that they do and how it is that they do it. Before we get to all of that, the markets have had a worse day than yesterday, but relatively speaking, it's not the worst day that we've seen. Platinum and palladium pricing are down. Platinum back below $1,000 an ounce, so that's quite disappointing. Brent crude, $71.80 a barrel. That's kind of in the range we've seen it in throughout the week. The gold price keeps on moving forward. $3,038 a fine ounce now. It was higher than that a little earlier today as well, so keeps moving in the right direction. And when we look at equity markets, our own local markets had a rather negative day, and it's quite interesting because the biggest loser was the industrial sector, which is down 2.2%, and that is likely driven by the 5% moves that we saw to the downside from Naspers. And you'd think that when Tencent gave us that announcement early this morning that they would be doing a 182 billion rand share buyback, that would be positive for the business. But nonetheless, the Hang Seng closed down 2%. The industrial sector locally was down 2%. The market choosing to ignore some information and choosing to focus on the fact that Tencent probably didn't give us any news about artificial intelligence. Very, very weird things that happen in the markets, and we're going to unpack that a little later on with Skulk Low from PSG Wealth. He joins me tonight to take a look at those movements. But for some of the other movements, while we are looking at that, all European markets are in the red at the moment, or they finished in the red, with the biggest loser being the DAX down 1.3%, and the CAC 40 in France a close second, down 0.75%. Our own local markets down 0.7% in the case of the All Share, and the top 40 down 0.88%. As I said, the industrials leading that big decline there. Financials were flat flat, and resources were up 0.8%. The rand, 18 rand 16 cents against the US dollar off the back of that no interest rate adjustment. The Euro 1969 and the British pound 23 rand 55, 1 Australian dollar 11 rand 42, 1 Bitcoin just shy of 85,000 US dollars or 1.54 million rand. So we have lots to look into for a Thursday, and we'll be back a little later on to do that. For now, Ashraf, back to you.
All right, and need I say this, have a nice weekend, because I assume you are definitely not working tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Yeah? Okay, got that right. It is Human Rights Day after all, so you're right to have a rest on Human Rights Day. Jimmy Muyaha with the SFM Market Update. Listen to the show 6 to 7 coming up pretty shortly. But your calls, and I get a sense of what your pulse is telling you right now. I want to hear it right after this.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
Okay, lots of opinions, and we'll get many of the WhatsApp messages too in text or voice notes. But we go first to Leidenburg. Chris there. Chris, hi.
Hi, Ashraf. How are you?
I'm very good indeed. Right, go for it. What's your point?
Yeah, I just want to commend Makashule, Ghana, and his Rice Party. I think it's mature politics, what they're doing. Instead of playing party politics, they went out there, got the facts of indeed there was a land operation with or without compensation, and they put the information out there for everybody to see. I think I commend them for their patriotism, and I think they are approaching politics in a very matured way, and I commend them for that.
Interesting. I mean, I heard that from somebody else as well, both with Makashule Ghana and Songezo Zibi, in terms of their role. I mean, small party, insignificant numbers in parliament, but they are in key positions, and they certainly making the type of impact. It's not always about just raising your hands, but about being in strategic parliamentary portfolio committee. So I think point well made there, Chris, in Leidenburg. Thanks for that. Let's get to Musa in Alberton, talking about the renaming. I'm not too sure which one, Stanton Drive or Braamfontein. Musa, hi.
Hi, Ashraf. Ashraf, this is very disappointing, really, for us to struggle to name our streets as a sovereign country just because a big guy is somewhere saying, if you do this, I won't trade with you or I'll sanction you. It seems like we have lost humanity, really, if I'm looking at it.
So you say South Africa, if they're going to now hold on the renaming of that street, Stanton Drive, that we are succumbing to U.S. pressure, right?
Exactly. Like the professor said there, even in Pretoria, there was one incident where the judge had put pressure on us not to rename.
Yeah.
But we have lots of Michelle Avenues here, short copies, people whom we don't know what role they play. But now, when we come to honor the people we know, I mean, for us to align with Palestine, it's because we went through the same bitter and cruel system which the Palestinians are going through. Okay. And now we're supposed to lie, not to tell the truth about it.
Okay.
And we're supposed to worship money. This is what I hear in the Bible.
All right. Well, we expected this issue to draw huge emotional points of view from different sides of this fence on this one. There are practicalities or sticking to principle. Mosa in Alberton, thanks for that. Right, let's get another comment. I think it's Shata in Cape Town. What's your point, Shata?
Ashraf, how are you?
Yeah, good indeed. Go for it.
I'm good, Ashraf. Ashraf, we are South Africa. When we were in apartheid, Palestine was there and based resources for us to defeat the apartheid. Palestine is still going through the same thing. By us succumbing to America, we will be succumbing to the apartheid state of Israel. We will be succumbing to the apartheid Afrikaners of this country. Right? We as South Africans, as a nation that was under an evil dark apartheid system like Israel at the moment. If we succumb, we are succumbing. We are taking a defeat against the evildoers.
All right. So, okay, you've made that point. Why then do you think government's having a rethink about it? What is your understanding of it?
Ashraf,
yeah.
We don't have to think about anything. The sense is that we are supporting Palestine. We are South Africa. Palestine has been supporting South Africa through this thing. Why should we name our country by a Jewish somewhere? When we were in struggle with Palestine.
All right, Shatta made the point. I think, some may say, let's look at the two bigger pictures. I think if South Africa to withdraw its claim to the ICJ against Israel, that would be hugely dramatic. Here's the issue: is how big an issue, it's symbolical, how big an issue is it to maybe relent on the Leila Khalid one? I'm not saying that's what they should do. I'm asking you, what do you think? The ICJ case is the bigger one of the two, isn't it? Sydney in Acorn Hook, go for it, Sydney.
Hi, Brother Ashraf, Sydney, you live in Acorn Hook, Creek.
Right, thanks. What's your point?
Brother Ashraf, the very existence of AfriForum, in my opinion, it is because of their total dislike of us Black African people. That's why they even formed themselves in that formal grouping, if I may put it that way. And the fact that they've been given an opportunity to migrate to USA, I can only say this to them. Still, USA is not an ideal place to go to, because still there are community contact with Black African people, because they are there. Rather, they try, Green, AfriForum, try to find another way to relocate, connect with the Balkans or some of East European countries.
Okay, well, they say they don't want to go. AfriForum doesn't want to go. Maybe other Afrikaners, they want to go, but AfriForum says no to that. Okay, Sydney?
The AfriForum part.
Okay.
That's what I refer to.
All right, got that, Sydney. Right, let's get further comments. Lots of congratulations, by the way, for Kirsty Coventry and for Zimbabwe as well, by the way, that Zimbabwe's Minister of Sport, Kirsty Coventry, is now the president of the International Olympic Committee. The first woman president, the first African, the first Zimbabwean. Wow. Right, there's lots more comment on the USA, right?
America must not forget that we once, South Africa, had nuclear capability or nuclear weapons and were disarmed when the white South Africans gave power to our black people. So America must not come here and be a crybaby. What is the story with America? If they want our oil and gas explorations, they must say it in daylight, not try all these nonsensical things that they are doing.
Okay, I hear what you say. Interesting take on that one there with your own sense of humor style, right? Scully in Durban, go for it, Scully. Hi.
Hi, good day to you, Asha.
Thank you.
My take is, it's Scully. My take is that the naming of the streets, why this rush? Why the rush to change the name? All these years we were with Stanton, okay? And instead of going to Mideast, go with Shaka. Something like our local name.
So a local name would be sufficient, yeah.
That's just my suggestion.
All right, got that. Scully in Durban, thank you for that, right?
Good afternoon. It's Dumiso from Waterfall in KZN. With South Africa, we'd like to think that we are very good at this foreign policy game, but we are not. Firstly, our brinkmanship is terrible. Secondly, we are playing mlabalaba, whereas we're supposed to be playing bridge. Thirdly, if I may make an example, you see there, back in history, King Amintas I of Macedon, the father of Alexander I. So what he did, when he saw the Persian threat to invade his nation, he said, let me hold back, let me play this diplomatically, while in the midst of the threat, let me rebuild or build myself, let me strengthen all the muscle that I'll need, so that when the opportune moment comes, I can actually make these threats irrelevant. Mm-hmm. That's what we need to be doing right now. We need to be playing this strategically, but our government is incapable.
I thought some may say they are being strategic about things anyway. How strategic is Donald Trump?
Ashraf, what will happen after Donald Trump administration? Will the Afrikaner be still in America, or the next president will chase them away.
Long way down the line, seriously speaking, isn't it? You really want to think that far down?
Good afternoon, Ashraf and the team. Trust you guys are well and blessed. Ashraf, just listening to the feedback on the Saldanha Bay elections. Quite interestingly, the Patriotic Alliance done very well, but I noticed on the reporting, there's no kind of congratulations to them. There's more reporting on the MK party. Am I seeing a biased reporting, or am I misunderstanding? Please provide clarity, and to the listeners of SAFM, please give us clarity on this, because to me, where I'm sitting, it seems biased reporting. Thanks. Keep on.
Well, look, I don't have the figures with me, but I do know that the MK party won that ward, right, and beat the ANC and took basically all the ANC votes. So what did the Patriotic Alliance do that you're saying warrants that much attention, even if they improved on their last one? The biggest swing, and it's a massive swing to the MK party, their first ever victory in the Western Cape. I mean, that's worth fussing over. So are you saying that the media's got it wrong? They should focus on the Patriotic Alliance? Jeff in Nelspruit, hello.
How's it, Ashraf?
Yeah,
I just want to say this, Lekker, man. This is what I want to say. I've traveled all over the world. I've been very fortunate. We think we're so important. We're not important. The rest of the world really doesn't care that much about South Africa. And I'm a Johannesburger. We can't even keep our street lights on. Our drains are blocked. The pavements are overgrown. And our monkeys in the council want to rename a street after a Palestinian woman. You know, really, get their priorities right.
So,
what do they want to do? They want to poke the bear. For what? To irritate the white folk that live in Sandton.
Do you think that's the motive? Do you think that's the motive?
Well, I don't know what it is, but I flew back from somewhere recently. I landed at the airport. It was the most miserable experience of my life. I drive into Johannesburg. It's supposed to be a major city in Africa, and the street lights on the freeway back into the city don't work. I drive down Willie Mandela, been renamed, fine. The street lights don't work. Louis Botha, the street lights don't work. Malibongwe, the street lights don't work. Oxford Road, the street lights don't work. Rivonia Road, the street lights don't work. Get their priorities right.
Okay.
What are they doing? They pay themselves this money, and they drive around in blue lights, and they think they're special. Well, they're not special. They can't get the basics right, and they want to name the Sandton Drive where the U.S. consulate sits. What? They just want to poke the bear. The U.S. doesn't care. And let me tell you another thing. The consulate moves out of Joburg. There's so many people leaving Johannesburg because it's got such a bad reputation. Now we won't even have a consulate. Nairobi's got it.
Well, I mean, I hear you, but I mean, if you heard what we said earlier on, in fact, the president or government has said they want a reconsideration of that. So, you know, maybe somebody's listening. I'm not saying it's right. Your point about the Palestinians, for some people, it's a terrorist. Again, Leila Khalid, for other absolute freedom fighter who fought a case for her country, and even, yes, was involved in hijacking, but to try and raise the awareness around what is seen as stolen land. And, you know, you can have that debate all day long. As far as Joburg is concerned, in fact, the mayor said yesterday, it's not a broken city. And I do agree that Joburg is in a crisis, no question about that, as a city, right? Okay, yes, more.
Ashraf, the AfriForum and the other white African organizations are making a big mistake. If they're trying to put the ANC down, they are giving strength to those who are more radical than the ANC. What they want to see maybe is what happened in Zimbabwe. JJ Stexbridge.
Thanks, JJ. I don't think they want to see that, but you may be right about your analogy, by the way, or your example.
Hi, Ashraf. Hi, SAFM listeners. Regarding the land expropriation bill and the misinformation, I don't know if I'm oversimplifying the situation. The government should call an open forum, let them bring the aggrieved parties, your AfriForums and Solidarities, let them come with their evidence, let the government come with their evidence, make it public so the world can see, and let each party prove their points with where land has been expropriated without compensation, and including the farm murders. Let everyone come onto a national platform that can be broadcast all around the world like it was done with the Oscar Pistorius' murder. I don't know if he's simplifying it, but I think that's a solution. HG Cape Town. Thank
Well,
you.
I mean, you know, maybe you are simplifying it, but I think the principle of saying, you know what, let's put our egos away, let's have a conversation about this, even privately. I would go for the private conversation, actually, as opposed to the public one, which is where there's a lot of there's a lot of drama being played out in the public spaces.
Good afternoon, Astra. Good afternoon, listeners. This is Patrick from Soweto. Astra, I think this Freedom Plus, they must remove from GNU because it's part of AfriForum. They must remove it. I don't see the need that it should be on GNU. Where Trump is giving the refugee, all this AfriForum, they called refugees. So I think I don't see the need of being part of the GNU because AfriForum and Freedom Plus, these are the same. Thank you, Patrick Soweto.
Okay, Patrick, you got us thinking, and that's the last voice note I can take. As always, there's many other people who want to call, many other voice notes. I mean, really, we struggle to get as many as possible done. That's why I'm saying when you call in, keep it short and keep the voice notes up to 30 seconds. It allows many other voices to be heard, and I certainly want to get to hear your voices. Well, that's the National Pulse for today. We'll do it again tomorrow, 3 to 6. Thank you so much for listening and engaging all throughout the last 3 hours. Here's Greg with the news at 6 o'clock.
Thank you again, Ashraf. In this news update, Minister hands over new school facilities in the Eastern Cape and 4 suspects killed in shootout with police. Good evening. The Basic Education Minister, Sibeka